Are you sitting comfortably? Then we'll begin.
'Welcome back, my friends, to the show that never ends. There's still time. The AFTN Soccer Show, broadcasting on CITR Radio 101.9 FM from the unceded Musqueam Territory at the University of beautiful British Columbia. I'm Big Sexy Michael McCall.
And I'm Zachary Adamizer.
Just trying something new out. Can maybe get a fun little nickname for you.
Whatever you say, Big S.
Yay! Let's see if that sticks.
Michael, are you creating an uncomfortable workplace?
I am. Sorry. Thankfully, I'm the only one that's working here, so it's totally okay.
Sorry. I'm so sorry.
That is something we're going to be talking about after. It's another week, another Canada soccer story that paints the previous regime and the running of the organisation in a very, very terrible light. We'll get into that. We're handing out our first AFTN Whitecaps awards of the year. We're going to talk Vancouver Rise, their new head coach, some stuff that came out of their press conference. We'll talk Canada, national team level, and we'll finally get round to bringing you something we'd hoped to have in last week's show, but we ran out of time talking just about the heavy international calendar and what it means to the players. So a lot to pack in to another packed show. And of course, the little wrinkle that was thrown into our podcast plans on Monday morning when the news broke that Vancouver Whitecaps had parted ways with head coach Vanni Sartini. To quote the famous Scottish drunk Robbie Burns, "The best laid schemes o' mice and men gang aft a glee." So we did have a schedule for this episode that has kind of gone out the window, and we will kick things off by talking about that breaking news on Monday on Vanni Sartini. Before we get into all that, how has your week been, Zach? Not great from our pre-recording discussions.
I won't go into all those details. Yeah, there's been some things that I didn't plan for this week that happened, but that's life. That's some of those things happen.
That's life.
Before that, before my Saturday got a little messed up, but prior to that, yeah, it was a really good week. Very full week at work. Yeah, it's November. It's a fun time of year.
Yes. Highlight of my week is I bought a new TV.
Oh. For your birthday?
Yeah, I kept treating myself to it. It's a Samsung. With Samsung, it came with free 3 months of Apple TV.
Oh, have you watched Ted now, finally?
I have finally started to watch Ted Lasso. Oh. And I said to Caitlin, I can get to watch this now. And she's like,
we need to talk about it.
Yeah, well, folk at work's been saying to Caitlin, I don't like soccer, but I really like Ted Lasso. I think you would like it. So she watched the first episode with me. We're now into season 2, episode 2. Loves it.
Yeah, it's so good.
We've blitzed through it in like 3 days so far. So
football is life.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
So that was one of the guys who was at the LAFC game I was at.
Oh,
he was one of the VIPs hanging out. He's also has a small, very small role in Marvel, which I won't ruin for you because one day I'm sure you'll catch up on.
Oh yeah, just like I'm catching up with Ted Lasso just now as well.
Exactly.
I mean, I won't talk too much about what's happened in.
I know, because everyone listening to this is like, I watched that so long ago.
I know. People watched it in 2020. I'm watching it now, but there's going to be some folk that haven't seen it, and I don't want to spoil anything for them. What I will say though is, when it was going into episode 10 of season 1, I was like, I think I know how this episode's going to end. And then I said to Caitlin, this would be my way of writing it. And it was what I wanted. And I was absolutely delighted. And I was like, oh, this is going to make season 2 all the better. But we're only one episode into season 2. So we're going to be blitzing that this week. And I can't believe how much Caitlin is enjoying it either.
Well, that's the thing. So I watched it. I couldn't get my wife to watch with me the first time. But then I was just like, you have to watch the show with me. I think you'll enjoy it. So I watched it again. I got her to watch it, and she she laughed and whatever and enjoyed. There's certain parts that aren't her favorite, but in general, she really enjoyed it. So I got to rewatch it with her, which is great. Now maybe I'll rewatch it a third time so I can talk to you more about it. But
we can do it in an extra podcast. That can be.
We do need to have some kind of review or discussion of it, because there's one thing actually I literally saw online today, which I won't say to you, not because of any of the plot of the series, but when you're done watching it, it's part of the discussion we'll have, because I don't think I ever thought of this, and I don't know if this is the first time I saw this or it's the first time I remember seeing this, but someone just gave an interesting perspective on the show on social media. I was reading on social media. Someone was I won't ruin it for you, because if you start thinking about it through this lens, it might either ruin it for you or be like, oh, you'll be like, yeah.
Well, there's a very good chance I'll have finished all 3 seasons by the time we do the show next weekend. So
perfect.
I've loved it, and as you said, folk, I've watched it years ago. I've just never had Apple TV because I don't own any Apple products, and I was like, may as well take the plunge. It's Christmas time as well. There'll probably be some nice Christmas stuff on Apple. The thing that I've liked about it, like, I've watched a lot of like TV shows over the years, some comedy, some dramas that are football based. Now, we spoke about 21 Thunder as well when that was, I remember.
Yes.
There was a really good show, the late 80s, I think 89 and 90 in the UK, called The Manageress.
Oh.
And it was a drama, it was a serious drama, and it was about the owners of this club appointed a female head coach, and it was like a groundbreaking thing. But the only thing about it, although it's a very enjoyable series, or 2 series, it felt like it was just box ticking. It was like, oh, we'll talk about gambling in this episode. Oh, we'll talk about bullying in this episode. Funnily enough, all these years later, still a talking point. We'll talk about like match fixing. So it's like every episode had to have some kind of thing which took away from it a little bit.
Yeah.
But this has been good because it feels quite natural.
Oh, it's a very, totally.
The football scenes look terrible.
Some of them are, most of them are awful.
Yes.
One thing, I don't know if you looked ahead, but I think season 1 had 10 episodes, right?
Yeah, the other 2's got 12.
Yeah, I was just gonna, give you a heads up.
I know 3 things that happen in this series from stuff that I've read over the thing that kind of spoils stuff, but my favorite character.
It's about the journey, Michael.
It is. My favorite character, which probably won't surprise anyone, is Roy Kent.
Of course it is.
Can relate to him so much.
He's one of the writers, right?
No.
Yeah, he was.
I knew Coach Beard was.
He wasn't gonna. I don't think he was cast originally. I think he was one of the writers, and then I don't know if one of them said, "Oh, you need to play this role" or something like that. He's a comedian.
Oh.
I think he was just in Vancouver.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Hannah Waddington's absolutely amazing in it. I've seen her in so many things over the years. And Keeley is just absolutely fantastic. I mean, how can you not love Keeley? Which many of the squad do. But yeah. But anyway, that's my critique of Ted Lasso. Well, I mean, I guess we should move on from all the television chat. That's not what folk tune in to listen to, although I could very easily do a 3-hour show on it. I guess it's kind of transitioning from talking about one eccentric, enigmatic, and entertaining head coach in the fictional world to Vancouver's very own version of that, Vanni Sartini, who on Monday morning was let go by Vancouver Whitecaps after 6 years in Vancouver, starting off in 2019 when he was named assistant coach to Mark DeSantis, transitioning to director of methodology in September 2020, then head coach of what was the under-23 team at the time, before being named interim head coach of the Whitecaps MLS side in August 2021 after the sacking of Mark DeSantis. And then after those dramatic first few months in charge of the team, was named permanent head coach, taking charge of the team for the 2022, 2023 and 2024 MLS seasons, winning a hat-trick of Canadian championships, reaching the playoffs twice, before the big announcement this morning that the Whitecaps had parted ways with Vanni, and the search for the 6th permanent head coach in Vancouver Whitecaps MLS era got underway. So, a lot to unpack, and we're going to be joined for this part by friend of the show, Harjit Jahal.
Hey, Michael. Hey, Zach. Thanks for having me on. Great to see you guys on an eventful day. Any news happening out there?
Well, I mean, we're having to re-record the whole first part of the podcast, so... Oh, and I should also mention, if there's any references to Vanni over the rest of the podcast, I wasn't going through everything to edit out, oh, well, Vanni might do this next year. Just let that go. But yeah, we are going to talk about the departure of Vanni and Axel's press conference today. We'll hear a little bit from Axel during this part. It was a long press conference. You can find it all online, so we won't play too much.
It was only like 55 minutes.
Yeah, it was just three questions for Axel.
Yeah.
But before we play anything from Axel, let's get our initial thoughts. So, Har, what was your initial thoughts when they heard the news? Do you think it was the right decision?
I was definitely surprised. I do not think it was the right decision. I would have given him the final year on his contract and see how that went. And then if it didn't work out, you just let him go and don't renew him, because it's his players, it's his style, his tactic. And now you have to bring in a new coach, which is apparently going to have to work with a pretty much same roster. And I think they want to play the same way in the same style. So you already had that in Vanni. He's the most successful head coach the Whitecaps have had. So when you bring in a new coach, the expectations are quite high. It's not just about hitting a home run. You have to hit a grand slam now with this hire, and it puts immense pressure on Axel Schuster to get this hire right, or it's going to be his job on the line next.
Pretty fair. I mean, Zach, I sent you a text right away when the news broke going, Vanni's been fired. I mean, what was your initial thoughts on it? We've talked about it the last couple of shows. Do you feel it was the right decision?
I don't know if it's I guess time will tell whether it's the right or wrong decision.
That's true.
In the moment, I feel like it's a bit of a courageous one from Axel, because you're forcing your owner likely to pay out a little bit of money, which is no one's fond of paying someone who's not working for you in any situation. But I do believe that his analysis, as he shared today in the press conference, is that he doesn't feel that there's the right energy, the right kind of je ne sais quoi from Vanni to lead them to the next step.
That doesn't sound very German.
That's right.
It's a nicer language than German.
No. But no, I think so. I think it's courageous of him to take the decision that he's taken. And I think that yeah, like we've talked about, and I've said many times, I think he, as much as he respects Vanni and as much as I think he's treating him well through this situation, I think part of him is relishing making a hire that will be his hire. Mm-hmm. And even though I think out of respect for Vanni and not to stir up anything too much, I'm pretty sure that over this time, over these last 2 weeks since the season ended, plus the however many weeks or so it's been since he's been thinking about this. He said it was some point during the last 7 games of the season that he has a list. He has people in mind, or maybe even a short list of people he would like, or who knows, maybe it's even further along than that. But they can't wait on this. So I think it's a courageous decision from Axel. I think it's kind of mixed, a little bit of mixed response from the fans, right? There's a little bit.
If you read Blue Sky, they're disappointed. If you read Twitter, they're over the moon. And I think that maybe says a lot about both social medias.
There you go. But no, those are my first thoughts.
I mean, I think it was the right decision. I'd said a couple of shows ago that I was 50-50 on when he came back. And my big concern was a concern that Vanni also raised about himself, and Axel spoke about it today. Was Annie, that's my dog. I don't think Annie was the right person to take over, although who knows? But was Vanni the right person to take this group forward? Could he get any more out of this team? And I think you have to question, I don't think he could. I think he did take them as far as he could go, and sometimes a new voice in there is what is needed. Har, straight off the bat, asked Axel today just for his reasons for letting Vanni go. Here's what Axel had to say about that.
Axel, in the time that you took to come to this decision, what were the main key contributing factors that led you to dismiss Vanni Sartini?
Only, and that's our business. Everything you have achieved last week doesn't matter for next week. That's unfortunately like that. It's something for the history books, and you can write it in that. We can always come together and celebrate those most amazing moments, but it's always about the next game or the next season and the next challenge. And the only thing that has driven me through the time was really, do I have to believe that on 11, 12, 13, 14th of January, when we are back on the pitch and start to train, do we have a group that has all of what I just said, anger and hunger and belief and energy, and is everyone coming back with like, wow, I have to come back in the best form ever, and I have to be prepared because this will be the next season, and is everyone coming back with the right energy level? And if not, you better find a solution now after you find out after 5 or 7 games, because that's the risk, and that's obviously what drove my decision is, if we don't have all tools in place, then we better finish on a high than to wait until we maybe get to a low, where we then say, okay, that's a natural process in this business. So many years, the average due time of a coach in clubs is, by the way, in the first 30 leagues is 11 months. So it is the natural thing. I don't want to come to this point. I want not to miss the momentum. And I have seen that several times in my business, that coaches went away. Thomas Tuchel was a very famous example in Mainz, where he still had contract, and he said, I cannot stay because I don't think we can achieve what we have achieved this year, or we can do the next step. And so that was the only thing that drove my decision.
So Axel just explaining his decisions. And the thing was, Axel spoke a lot during the press conference today. Him and Vanni have had a lot of discussions about whether, like over the last 7 games of the regular season, whether it was going to be the right move to keep him around. And it is ballsy in the one hand. I mean, you made a point there about keeping him for his last year of the contract. Something I thought about driving home today. With this rumoured change to the MLS schedule, if you kept Vanni for another year and then you got rid of him at the end of next year, your new season's not starting until August. So it would have given you time to maybe find the right hire or the right decision then. The only thing I'm thinking about is, have they maybe, like, Axel basically said, we haven't started thinking about the plan, the succession plan, anything like that. With all respect to Axel, I don't believe that. I think you must have something going. And I think just out of respect to Vanni, you're saying that just now.
Absolutely.
But is there somebody maybe that they're thinking, oh, this person's going to be available or is available now. If we don't act now, we might lose this person.
Yeah, I don't know. Just based on what Axel said in the 55 minutes, he was all over the shop, contradicting himself, not going too in depth with his answer, saying one thing and then saying another thing that kind of was contradictory. I don't know if they have another coach lined up right away. That would seem to me that it would be immense planning. And it sounds like this decision came within the last 2.5 weeks. I know Jim Curtin has been mentioned a lot, and Simon asked Axel about him. From what I hear, he would like to stay close to his family in Georgia. So I'm not so sure if Vancouver is an option. I know you've mentioned CPL coaches, Bobby and Tommy, and I'm not keen on that. I think a person with more worldly big league experience would be more applicable for the Whitecaps and MLS. But again, it's Axel's call, and he better get this 100% because it's his job and he picks the players, he signs them. This coach doesn't seem to have a lot of say when they come in because it's the roster that's here now.
Well, that was the thing always with Vanni, because I remember a couple of years ago when we did our end of season or start of the season chat with Vanni, and I'd asked him about players coming in, and he's like, oh, that's not my decision. I leave all that to Axel. And obviously you've got Quinn now as well. And a lot of clubs operate that way, but it feels the Whitecaps want a coach just to coach, and then all the other decisions are going to get made by Axel, by Quinn. And I mean, if you've got a coach that's happy with that, everything ticks along nicely. If you've got a coach that wants a little bit more power, that's when maybe things aren't right. And like one thing we talked about on the phone, Zach, when we were chatting earlier, was Axel said one thing with the new coach is they don't want a coach that's going to come in and say, I need 2 windows to turn this team around, because Axel doesn't think it needs that because of the players here, and he knows the fans don't want to hear that anymore.
Yeah, I thought that was really good of him to say. Shows that he's in touch with the fan base, which we know he very much is. Yeah, but yeah, I mean, I think that's a pro in one sense, but going back to what Har said before, that saying that you want to bring in someone who's going to play a very similar way is a little bit concerning, especially since, the conversations we've had over the year of Vanni saying no one else plays football the way I do.
Yeah. So no other coach coaches the way that Vanni does.
Exactly. So I think it's going to get tweaked somewhat.
Oh, it has to.
But whether it's, I mean, I can't see them like promoting from within. I can't see them promoting from within or doing what they've done in the past where they bring someone from like USL or whatever. CPL to me is different. If they brought in Tommy or Bobby, that's different because of the ways in which they have built clubs and youth systems and proven themselves and are like proven winners. So I think you're probably more right in terms of what the fans would want or respect or support. But I think both of those are actually really viable options for them. But I wouldn't be shocked if, if it was someone like a Curtin, despite the potential barriers to that, or someone else. But they have to have some kind of short list. Like there's so much that happens in this part of the MLS calendar in terms of squad building or keeping your group together that I'd be shocked if they didn't have, at least 3 people that they're like, we hope it's one of these 3, and begun to talk to them and whatever.
And I genuinely believe Axel hasn't spoken to anyone. And he said that's like he wants to be somebody that conducts business, that you get rid of the coach first and then you do that. But in his mind, he must be coming up with names. He must be drawing things up. I mean, I jotted down here one of the quotes, but she said, he will not bring in someone who has a lot of new ideas and plays a different style, as we've just been talking about. And he doesn't want someone that's going to come in and try and change a lot or the club culture. Now, the culture at the club is great. Everyone talks about it's the best locker room they've been in. And yeah, you don't want to mess that up. But how much of that comes from
Vanni? Yeah.
And like Axel spoke about, that's not necessarily what they're looking for. He wants players to kind of step up a bit more and be more leaders on the pitch and take that leadership role, and not necessarily the coach. But if there's three coaches that are quite level and someone's got that personality, that might push them over. On the other flip side of that, and I know I mostly just care about the football inside, but there is the marketing side. And the general public loved Vanni. Mm-hmm. Some of the fans didn't, and they didn't love his antics. And it is a mixed reaction, I think, from the fans so far. But surely, if you're saying, and Axel disagrees with this because he seems to think this only rules out a small number. But if you're saying, I don't want anyone that's going to come in and play a different style, etc., you're vastly limiting who you're going to get to come in.
Yeah, you really narrow down your options or put yourself into a box or a corner as to who you're going to hire, and you've got to do your interviews and conduct your research and say, is this coach going to be an individual that we can hire that's going to play the way we want to play with this assembled roster? I don't know what coach is going to say, oh, that's a lot of parameters, or it's a lot of different changes. I don't know who that could be, who Axel has in mind. I know for me, I really like Bradley Carnell, who was with St. Louis. I don't know if he would be a candidate or an option. And it's not just because he's coached a certain right back, but yeah, I think he could be a good option, a good candidate. I think he was with the Canada men's team for a little while ago. So maybe look to him. Zach, who do you think maybe could be an option?
Yeah, I was, like I sort of said before, I think it would be great if like a Tommy or a Bobby came for, even though Har's vigorously shaking her head back and forth.
Well, give us a different name, please.
But no, I would, it would be interesting to me to see if he reaches like to Germany or to Europe and does something there. Michael and I were kind of talking about this on the phone too, about, okay, who could that be? And yeah, I can't really think of anyone off the top of my head. And like, I know Bochum's lost their coaches here, but he was not someone great. And I can't remember if their coach from last year who also went where he ended up. But there's not a name that just like jumps off the page to me that says screams the Whitecaps or screams, Vanni Sartini football.
Well, I mean, I'm thinking he's going to use his mind's connections. Red Bull are going to have a buyout of a team in the West, so they've got a team in the East and the West. Jurgen Klopp's going to come in as the head coach and reunite with Axel.
Yeah, that's not happening.
Where did I put my mushrooms?
Yeah. Do you know the money they're paying him? I mean, he technically doesn't start till January 1st. So
there is a name I do want to throw out in all seriousness.
Throw it out.
Because I clarified what the rules were for existing MLS coaches. So obviously you can't just go and tap them up. But right. I didn't know if MLS might have some weird rules, because I mean, who thinks MLS might have weird rules?
Yeah.
So I double checked whether they could go to a club and say, we'd like to speak to your coach to be our coach, or whether MLS rules would be like, no, but you can. So there's two coaches in situ I would love here. One of them is definitely a no-no, I would think, because he's still involved in MLS Cup, which is Oscar Perea, who I would love to hear. But Wilfried Nancy.
I thought you might say him.
He experience in Canadian soccer, has had his time, done well at Columbus, not his best season, but coach of the year. Could he be swayed with a big deal to come here? I would welcome him with open arms.
The rule that you're talking about, does it have to be a lateral move or an upgrade? Like, could it be you ask permission to speak to an assistant or
no, yeah,
someone else to be head coach? Or
like we could ask Atlanta for Kyle Robinson back.
But would you need Columbus's permission to speak?
Yes, if the club say, like, if Axel called up Columbus and said, we'd like to speak to Wilfred Nonsi about our coaching job, and they were like, fuck off, then...
Yeah, so you were talking compensation first just to be able to talk.
Oh, yeah. I'm sure. And also, you might then sit down with the person and they're like, no, I'm not interested.
I think another key point is whoever this head coach is when they come in, the assistants are all still here. Like, the assistant coaches are still employed and under contract.
Yeah, that's strange because whoever comes in is going to want to bring at least one of their own people.
Exactly. Would they have the ability to bring in their own assistants? Because if you fire these assistant coaches, that's more people you're paying not to coach.
Or will any of these coaches that Axel will be talking to tomorrow say, hey, if Vanni's out, I think my time's done as well?
Maybe.
Like, I'm not saying for
sure.
I've
I've said before, like, Mike D'Agostino deserves to be a head coach in his own right.
Yeah.
And I mean, for me, that maybe is moving into the CPL, but there's no vacancies in the CPL. So some of these coaches are going to be like, well, if we leave here, where do we go? Because it's either you go maybe to the USL or you go over to Europe if you can. And not everyone wants to do that for family reasons. But yeah, Zach says, no coach is, I can imagine no coach, maybe some might, but few coaches are going to want to be told, yeah, you can come here, but this is who your coaching staff is.
Your whole coaching staff is chosen for you.
Well, I could see them saying Yusuf's our goalkeeping coach, and that's not true.
Yeah.
And that's different.
Yeah.
But Vanni also said we've got one of the smallest coaching staffs in the league.
So maybe they bring one or two with them.
So it's like Drew, Mike, Brendan, 2, 3 if you can hang about. But as you say, they might not want to. Let's hear a little bit from Axel just now, just talking about what he's kind of looking for from a head coach.
Look, for me, I would say so much that it's not a key criteria to have MLS experience. Obviously, then if you have no MLS experience, you have to prove to me that you're flexible and that you have worked in more than one environment, or that you have worked in environments where you have to adapt to certain things. Because I don't think that MLS is any special, but it is obviously in some things different. And at the end, you work a full week with your squad in a more professional environment than most leagues in the world. If we exclude like the top 5, I think if you go to the other leagues in Europe, I just spoke with a few guys about that, how great our facilities are and how great the setup is, and how great and even in the exit meetings, some of the players that lately joined, they said, look, I would never imagined how good the standard is. The special things about MLS, they come more with, I would say, how you can build a roster or how much you can change in the roster, and how you have to play this puzzle game of putting players together. But we're pretty good there. I think, as I said before, there's not like a million of changes that have to happen. And then the other thing is obviously the travel and the different scenarios you are going to, that in some market it is like 40 degrees hot, and in others is a mile high, and sometimes you fly 5 hours and you have 3 hours of time change, and to adapt to that. But honestly, I think we have a very good setup here, and you get a lot of support. And to go back to the question with this squad, that is obviously the one other thing that in all those considerations is how much can you change in the squad to create a new congruency and a new situation where you find this energy. But I think everyone who knows our squad and follows us now for a time, and everyone who has seen our last games will say, okay, that makes no sense to move a lot of those players out who are starters, because I think if we look at our best 11 and everyone builds a best 11, everyone would say, okay, there is not a lot of areas where you can bring like a difference maker or somebody who will push the whole team and create this chaos by that. And with that, I would say bring everyone back onto the front foot.
So Axel, they're talking to him. MLS experience isn't crucial.
That was kind of interesting, no?
Yeah.
When he said that, I was just like, really? Like,
I'm 50-50 on that though, because
and that's why I think he could bring someone from your
like the way the club operates, as we've talked about, whereas Axel and Quinn make all the maybe signing decisions, the coach might say, oh, I need a left back, oh, I want another forward, something like that, and then they go and find it. But like Quinn is the guy that needs to know how all the rules work, and him and Axel are the guys that crunch the numbers to make sure that the cap works. So the coach doesn't necessarily need to concern himself with that. Now, historically, a lot of coaches that have come over from Europe have struggled here. And you look at who's won the MLS Cup over the years, and like South American coaches, Mexican coaches have maybe done well in the playoffs, American coaches, Canadian coaches, but European coaches are kind of few and far between that have succeeded here. Another name to throw at you, Gio Savarese.
Oh yeah, he's on Apple TV Plus, right? Or the MLS, whatever. Yeah, that could be an interesting one.
Also, you have to wonder where Vanni might end up.
Yeah.
Here's my guess for Zach. Afshin gets kicked out and he goes into Vancouver FC.
Yeah, that's not happening.
Not a chance.
That's definitely not happening.
You should go to Philadelphia. They got a lot of new Trump land people in northeastern PA.
I mean, the funniest thing would be Steve Cherundolo calls him up and says, hey, do you want to come down as assistant?
Oh my goodness. No, I think One Soccer would probably want to hire him. Angie, they love him there.
Oh, yeah.
Angie
and then he could stay in
like
Canada.
Yeah, there you go.
I wonder if he would go back to Chicago. I know
he loves Chicago.
Loves Chicago.
Yeah, he absolutely loves it. In terms of building the roster, Axel said, and like how you were speaking to him afterwards as well about this, that he wouldn't want to bring a player in that the new coach wouldn't want, which then makes the next couple of weeks a little bit awkward.
Exactly.
Yeah, you have to either speed up the process to hire a coach or do your own shopping and then bring the coach in afterwards.
Well, when's the next mechanism thing, Mike? What's the actual date?
Well, Wednesday's when they have to confirm the options by.
10 a.m.
10 a.m. And then after that, you've got the re-entry drafts. And
what day?
Like,
what day?
We're never all that busy, but free agency opens as well in December. I could see them making an appointment by mid-December. Stuff like the draft doesn't matter too much because you're kind of drafting guys for WFC too.
Okay, the expansion draft is on the 11th, free agents on the 12th, waivers 12th, half-day trade window on the 9th, 2 weeks-ish into December.
Yeah, the other thing as well is you've got players like Fafa Pico, and we'll find out soon enough if they're picking his option up. So a new coach might be like, I want Fafa. I want him to fit my system. Or it might be, no, I don't see him fitting in how I want to play. And you don't know that right now. So it's like you take Fafa, you don't take Fafa. So, I mean, you have to take the option and then see if you want to move him on. But my biggest concern is the longer it goes on before they appoint a coach, you're hitting into your ability to then sign players.
Because they're going to want to know who the coach is.
Yeah. Because free agents are going to be like, I'd like to wait. I don't want to come in case it's a coach I've worked with before and I don't get on with. If you're speaking to players over in Europe, they might be like, well, I'll come, but who's the coach? Or you say, oh, do you want to come? And then the coach is like, I don't want this guy.
Yeah.
So that's my worry, is that the longer it goes on, it delays things a little bit.
It's got to be in the next week and a half.
So what was that, Har?
He pretty much said there wasn't really an urgency or a rush to do this, which is bonkers.
All that points to them saying that they want a coach who's just going to live with what's there or the decisions they've already made, which again feels like it then narrows your options, which doesn't seem like the best approach.
No.
That's why I think they must have a candidate or two or three in mind that they would like, that they think fits all, checks all these boxes, and will be able to step in like early December, mid-December.
I mean,
Axel has been over in Europe the last little while.
Right?
Yeah.
He was doing some research, knocking on some doors, maybe.
Because I did joke when it was delayed. I was like, "Oh, is he bringing a new coach in with him?" But yeah, I mean, it was an emotional press conference for Axel today. There was a couple of times. I mean, I'm going to play the questions I asked him in a sec about his thoughts on the season, and he seemed to be a bit emotional talking about it. And I don't think that was easy for him today, because he has built a friendship with Vanni, and he said they remain friends after this, which is nice, because I genuinely don't know how MDS thinks about how he was let go. I've got a rough idea, but
I know.
Well, I don't know how friendly he still is with Axel.
Oh yeah, no,
But it was emotional, and fact that he had just come off a big flight and did all that. It's like, I admire him for that. At the same time, I don't think it was the best idea. I'd have waited a day.
Yeah.
But the longer you wait, the more it comes out, as it was broken this morning. And I think that's frustrating. But this was planned anyway, to have this today. I personally would have waited, had a little bit of sleep, been a bit fresher tomorrow, and it might have been a little bit... I think if we speak to Axel in 2 weeks' time, it'll be a lot more nuanced. But like, just to summarise it all, I think what it boils down to her is Axel said this decision was not based on last year. It's based on him looking forward to the year to come, and whether Vanni was the right man to take the team forward a further step, and he feels he wasn't. And I respect that, and I agree with that.
Which was kind of interesting in the way that he responded to JJ Adams' first question, where he said, if you guys had beaten LA, would this still be happening? And essentially he said, yeah, I think so. Or like, it's not that simple, but yeah.
Yeah, because you've gone further.
Yeah, you've gone further, but he still said that I think Vanni didn't have that energy or whatever for the word.
Yeah.
To lead us in the preseason to get us to where we needed to be next year, which was I mean
he had a lot, so good luck to whoever the new coach is.
Yeah. Final bit for this part. I asked Axel a couple of questions just around his thoughts on the season. The thing we've been talking about for the last couple of shows, progression, regression, or status quo. Here's what he had to say about that. I asked Vanni this question, and it's about just the season that's been, whether you see it as one of progression, regression, or staying the same. Vanni pointed towards metrics, chances created, all that kind of stuff. But if you look at the hard metrics, it's a lower league position, it's less goals, it's less points. Do you see it as a season of progression? Did it stay the same, or did the club take a bit of a backward step?
Yeah, it's wonderful things about stats. The only stat that matters is at the end the position in the ranking and the goals scored and goals against, probably. And I think in all three stats we have been worse than last season. But I also would not go down this road and say for that reason that there was no progression at all. I think there was progression, but let's say it was something missing at the end. That's what we all can agree on. And what have been the reasons? Some of the things look better in the stats, and clearly better in the stats than the year before, but the outcome wasn't the same. So have we this year underperformed or the last year overperformed? The thing is, and it goes back, and it's a great question. The thing is, how do we come back with the belief that we next year will get to a better outcome? And I think it's part of this problem. Like if we say, oh, there was a lot of progression and the team is doing a lot better, but the outcome is not better, then it is even a more complicated question. So yes, I would say the biggest progression that I have seen was our last 4 games and how we have challenged our opponents and how tight and a game of inches this was against LAFC. And we won the aggregate against them in 3 games. and it was like a coin toss in the third game. If Brian scores at the beginning, then we're one up, and they score then from an unlucky situation on our side where Kubas wants to save and help, and he heads the ball into the foot of the forward of LAFC. But at the end, I agree with you. We are all not 100% happy with the outcome of the season, and this is also why I say we have to come back with anger, because we have to feel anger that we ended up in a situation that we should not have ended in. We shouldn't have played LAFC. And then with the form that we had against LAFC and against Portland, with all respect to other opponents, I think we would have had a bigger chance. And if we would have played 2 games at home, even bigger. So that's what I have to think about for the future, because that's done and everything was great. And once again, there's nothing to criticize, but it is to analyze and to think about how do we play a better season. And I want to say that very careful, and please, that should not be understood as any criticism of last season. But of course, there were a lot of things where people were also frustrated. There is also, on the way here, I was on this plane, and everyone in the club is working and sending me documents and everything. I got also a social media review, and there's also another part where people say, yeah, well, it was frustrating this year to go to home games, and that's I want to be very careful, because there's not criticism on Vanni, really not. He has done everything. He has worked 365 days on making this team better and getting to a better outcome. The final result wasn't what we really all wanted to get to. And now it's a question, how do we get to a final outcome next season where we sit after the season here and think, okay, this was a progression. And as we know in this business, this sometimes also goes fresh. I want to describe it as fresh energy. I hope everyone understands that from the English words that I use, that no one's responsibility. You create this fresh energy by bringing fresh players in, new players, creating chaos, to make everyone a little bit anxious about his situation, the team, holding everyone accountable to do the next step. I have to train better. I have to play better. I have to do better. I cannot just do the same again that was good all the time. Or it comes from a new coach, for example, where everyone says, oh, the new coach, you never get the second chance to make a first impression. So I have to be ready. And that's what our business sometimes is. And I said it before, that's the reason why I'm sitting here quite sad that we have been in a situation where we had to think about such things. And we couldn't think about all the good things that we have done in the past. And we cannot speak about or cannot think about, for this professional decision, about what an outstanding person Vanni is. That is without a question. And for that reason, I'm so happy that we were chatting, and he said, look, I'm more than happy to be part of the press release and have a quote there, because I see it the same, and I'm very sad that you had to make this decision. And and he obviously had to believe, and that would be weird if a coach wouldn't believe, that he can find a few ways to change things next season. And I had to make a professional decision how we can get the biggest impact to make this step forward and to get to progression.
Yeah, I think Vanni himself acknowledged he was questioning whether he could get more out of the team that was there. Looking at the wider picture, this was such a big year for the club, 50th anniversary, crowds, huge crowds, all the things that went with that. Do you feel it was a bit of a wasted opportunity, though, the way the season went? Because I know a lot of things have been out of your control, the Messi situation, stuff like that. But you've sent the fans home happy with that last game against LA at BC Place. But the overriding feeling going into that was it was just a disappointing season all round for the club.
Yeah, 100%. I was at several seasonal ticket holder events. I was at one before I don't know, I don't think it was the playoff game. Maybe it was the last home game before that. But I maybe it was also the playoff game. I was a season ticket holder event, and I said, look, guys, you know that I'm never shy of being ambitious, to put the bar high. I prefer to put the bar very high, and maybe we just miss it by an inch, and then it was still good. And I said, look, one thing I want to say thank you for everyone who bought his seasonal ticket. And our numbers have grown a lot over the last 2 years. And I said, look, I can give you one promise. There's one thing that we definitely have to do better next year is to play better home games, because I think I agree with you. We missed an opportunity to send those people more often home excited. And we had incredible numbers. We had the 7th best attendance in all MLS this year, and that's outside of the Miami game. We would be still in the top 10. So we had games. It starts right. It was the first game Charlotte. We had the game against Austin, the game against LAFC. And if I even take the game against Miami, even if they play without the superstars, we had so many people in the stadium, and we haven't sent the people home like excited the way we should excite them, and it doesn't help our core supporters, and that's obviously our home market. If we play very good on the road and always get the points there, and then we come home and they think like, wow, they are close, they could finish 4th and they are competing for the 4th spot, and then they go home after the game and say, yeah, but not this way. So so now everyone will say, yeah, but we have seen the team, how good it can play. And I come back to the same, and we are now circling a little bit around. The outcome at the end wasn't what we were hoping for, what we wanted to see, what we promised our seasonal ticket holders, and what we promised them for next year again. And so we need more energy in this group to push ourselves more and to higher limits. And we could do this in playoff games. We could do this in elimination games, obviously, and we need to get the point that we do this in 30 or 34 games in the season.
So Axel's thoughts there on the season, and he said to her something was missing. When you look at all the metrics and all the things, like, did they overperform last year? Or did they underperform this year? And I've been steadfast by this. This is the best Whitecaps team I've seen in my time covering the team. They should have been higher than 8th. I think that's the frustration, and I think that's the anger that Axel talks about he wants the players to take into next year. And they did underperform. And it is... like Vanni threw out at his press conference about all these, we completed more passes or we created more. None of that matters if you've not got points on the board. And everyone knows that if they had just got a few more down the stretch, you wouldn't have been playing LAFC. There's a good chance you would have been in the conference semi-finals at least, and Vanni would probably still be here.
I think also we know they need to be better at home. You're going into next season. You want the fans to come back, and there were quite a few performances at BC Place that weren't good enough, that did not get the job done. So this is maybe a message to your fans that we're doing something different. Come back with next year and see our new coach and see what we do in next season. Zach?
Yeah, that's a great point, that Axel made in terms of one of the areas that they have to improve. The new coach has to improve the side is how they perform at home, because it was so poor.
I mean, Axel said it's like there's no point performing great away from home because most of your fans don't see it.
Yeah.
I'd like to also say, and I asked Axel this after the presser, what responsibility does he take in constructing the roster? Because he talked about needing more depth. Well, that's not a Vanni Sartini job or issue. That's Axel. He buys the groceries, he signs the players, he brings the guys up. So, there's a responsibility there. If there's not enough depth or cover when the player's injured or suspended or not available, international duty, that's on him. So he also has to improve the team in other areas so that you have depth. So You go in to play LA, or Seattle, and you can match Ruidaz, or Kamara, and Eli Sanchez, and bring someone off the bench who can make a performance and have a contribution. So I think there's pressure in that regard too, to shore up the depth in a lot of areas, because when they were shorthanded, it was not the best.
No. And like using your analogy, they need to not have the depth purchased at no frills and go to somewhere like IGA, Choices, or Stongs. Not Whole Foods, because that's overpriced and you're paying way too much for something that's not really worth it.
Pretty good.
Any final thoughts from you, Zach?
I do like when he talking about when he was Axel was asked about the depth question about the additions. I think I think it was Trevor asked him. I think it was good that he said, as we try and build the depth this offseason, yeah, one or two of the additions could be actually players who end up being starters or whatever. So as much as they say they're happy with the starting the starting lineup and think it's competitive, it was good to hear him say that. Yeah, some of the additions. I mean, the fans will probably love to hear that.
Well, yeah,
some additions could be players who would actually turn out to be starters for them, and therefore might be difference makers in a sense.
I think the starting 11 is competitive, but you need to strengthen it because every other team is going to strengthen.
And that's the one other thing. We were talking about this in a different sense in the last couple of shows, Mike. But what does this mean for a Brian White? Right, like Vanni was his biggest fan. Vanni was the one who said he is my ideal striker. If I could choose any striker in the world, it would be Brian White, kind of thing.
I mean, he should have been out the door at that point.
But now, what does that mean for Brian White? I think it actually means that what we've been talking about, what we think they could use, is someone who's a level or two up from Brian White, who Brian White either plays with or complements or spells or they rotate or whatever. But I think a new coach and maybe Axel prior to that can focus on doing that without dealing with a coach who says, no, this is the number one guy.
Har, any final thoughts from you?
So much for a quiet Monday.
Yeah. Give Har a follow as always on Twitter @HarJournalist. You've not made it over to Blue Sky yet, have you?
What's that? I thought it just rains here.
It's butterflies. I like it. It's a lot nicer over there. But you still find me on Twitter. You can read all our stuff all over the place as well. I just want to finish this part by saying a big thank you to Vanni. I sent him this message earlier today as well, but I just want to put it out on the podcast as well. He's been great to deal with since he became the head coach. He's always had time for us. He was never too busy to speak to all the nonsense stuff that we asked him. We'd have big in-depth discussions. We didn't always agree on everything, like three at the back and my version of playing compared to his version of playing. But it was great to have those chats. He's such a big presence, and it will be missed at Whitecaps training, in the locker room, just at media conferences, just dealing with him. And I wish him all the very best for whatever comes next. He's a fantastic guy. And just thank you for the memories. Thank you for the 3 Canadian championships, and ciao.
I'd also like to say grazie to Vanni and his wife, Barbara. Great to deal with both of them. Always enjoyed talking to Vanni. We never knew what he was going to say or what his thoughts were going to be on topics, but it was certainly something you would want to listen to and hear his opinion. So thank you for making time available and answering our crazy questions and talking about his cats and socialism and everything. So definitely enjoyable. Great quote. As media, we love talking to someone who's going to give you quotes for a day. So all the best to both of them. We'll see where he lands. And maybe MLS. We'll see if that's the avenue, but best of luck going forward and hopefully success further down the road. Maybe some more tattoos for him if he can win a cup tournament.
Yeah, he needs to update his arm.
Yeah. All for me as well. All the best to Vanni. He leaves Vancouver as, I think, the most successful coach in the MLS era, which is no small feat. And all the best for what's next, and looking forward to seeing what's next for him and how his career will carry on and what opportunity he'll choose to take next. So all the best to him and his family.
Well, thanks to her for joining us. We're going to continue the Whitecaps chat in the next part, and it's happier news as we're going to be handing out our first end of season awards, and we'll be back with that after the penultimate song from our album of the month.
Hi, I'm Vanni Sartini, and you're listening to the AFTN Soccer Show.
Welcome back to the AFTN Soccer Show on CITR Radio 101.9 FM. And kicking off this part, it's our penultimate song from our final album of the month for 2024 from Leicester in England. The band is Prolapse. The album is their third studio album, 1997's The Italian Flag, and that is the opening track from it, Slash Stroke Oblique. We've got one more song to come from Prolapse later in the show. And of course, we've just got to give a little hat tip to Vanni Sartini, that album, The Italian Flag. And I'm sure it's kind of flying a little bit at half-mast today after Vanni's departure on Monday morning as head coach of the Whitecaps. What we are going to talk about for the rest of this part, though, is we're kicking off our end of season AFTN awards, and we're kicking it off with the player awards. And we've got 7 to hand out in this episode. We'll do them as quick as possible. And disclaimer, there will be no awards actually literally given out to the players. Just want to stress that before anyone's legal teams get in touch. Let's kick it off with a big one. Whitecaps Player of the Year, and we'll do a top 3 because I think we might both be agreed with.
So your top 3 are Ryan Gold, Ryan Gold, Ryan Gold.
Ryan Gold, riding through the glen. Yeah, Ryan Gold's my Player of the Year.
Yeah,
every year.
You can't choose anyone else.
No. 15 goals, 10 in the regular season, 5 in the playoffs, 16 assists, 15 in the regular season, 1 in the playoffs.
That's 5 in 4 games in the playoffs, right?
Yeah, amazing stuff.
Yeah.
4 more goals and 3 more assists than he got in 2023. Got involved with the Scotland setup as well. Definitely our AFTN Player of the Year. If you were picking a second and a third, though, who would you go with? Who's your runner-up?
I assume you have like Stuart Armstrong's hair or something?
Oh, under my pillow? No.
No,
I didn't sneak into the locker room and take some. I was in the shower cleaning out the little thing that catches all the hair in the shower.
I assume because he scored a number of goals, you're going to have Brian White.
Brian White is my number 2. And Fafa is my number 3.
Yeah, that makes sense as well. I think Brian White, like I said on the last week's show, I think he should be the Whitecaps' number 2 striker next year. But you're right. No, I mean, how many goals did he get? 15?
16 in the year, 15 in the regular, one in the postseason.
Right.
Only 2 assists. I do like my forwards to contribute a little bit more. So he had the same amount of goals as last year, but 3 less assists.
But Brian White is
fused them together.
Brian White is the type of player who doesn't always get like an assist or even an MLS second assist, but he like creates the space.
Yeah.
Or he's like that, the third assist or whatever. Like I think he does and obviously we know how much Vanni appreciates him as a player and his qualities and abilities and style. And yeah, he does so much for them that helps them offensively, even when, as we talked about a lot, even when he's not scoring the big goal or the crucial goal that he maybe could or should, he's still adding to the overall offense and because he's so goal dangerous. I think teams are so aware for him that even just that space alone that he creates for people like Gold is really, really, really huge. So not on the score sheet or maybe not in your advanced stats or whatever, and it may be hard to see on your your map of where he's been on the pitch or whatever, but it is still a really significant thing for them, which I think is something that is, depending on how Vanni would approach it, is something that would be an asset if he was playing next to a striker who's even more consistent than he is, or more proven he is, or a bigger goal scorer than he is.
Yeah.
Fafa, I still feel bad for him that he never got that automatic contract renewal.
For Fafa, it was like 9 goals, 6 assists, his best season in his career for assists, thanks to the one that he got in the playoffs. And it was his 3rd best career season for goals. I still think he's got a lot left in him. He's got that chemistry with Ryan and Brian. And I guess we'll find out in a couple of days when all the options are announced exactly what they're doing with that. Doesn't necessarily mean he's going to be here next year, even if they pick it up, but it points hopefully in that direction. So that's our top 3 players of the year. You can let us know if there's anyone else you feel deserves to get in that top 3. Andres Kubas, I would maybe have had just on the outside looking in. Maybe wasn't his best season as a Whitecap, but so pivotal to the team that
for real.
Always in those discussions.
I know all you care about is goals. You're an offensive.
I know. I felt bad that my top 3 are all offensive guys.
But I don't think
I do like offensive guys.
You couldn't. It is. Oh, Michael, you couldn't put any of those you couldn't put any of their defenders there. No. Like, there's no way. What about I guess maybe he didn't have not quite the numbers, but and not probably the minutes either that these 3 have. But where would Ryan Raposo be for you? He's just the middle of the pack.
Yeah.
Was it last year? Was his more a bigger year?
Yeah. I don't think he pushed on. I mean, that's another one we'll find out as well.
Well, he's free agent, right?
Yeah. We'll find out soon what's maybe happening in that regard.
I have a player for award that's not on your list that we can do later, maybe.
Oh, okay.
Or do you want to do it now? It's kind of the inverse of player of the year. It's most disappointing player of the year. Oh,
you're bringing the tone down. So let's get into that now then.
Okay. No, but this isn't meant to be a horrible thing. I just for me, I was thinking about this week. Well, as I knew we were going to be talking about this, and I was thinking about our typical categories and thinking about the ones we're going to talk about next week as well. But I kind of feel like maybe the most disappointing Whitecap from the season, particularly when he played for the Whitecaps, is Ali Ahmed.
I knew that's where you were going, and I think last year
again he's
the one to watch.
Yeah, he's not a bad player. He's a great player, great upside. It just feels like he plays better for Canada. Maybe, and I think that might have to do with system and tactics a little bit. So I just feel like he underperformed for the Whitecaps this year, and it was disappointing because I think had they had Ali Ahmed at his best, I think they're definitely higher up in the table. Maybe not in the top 4, but definitely higher up in the table, and maybe still in the playoffs, or at least through that first round of the playoffs. And I think that he is a significant player for them. We were kind of joking about Schaffelberg earlier, from a Canadian perspective about what's next for him. But I wonder if I wonder for Ali Ahmed if it's like he has to have a kind of a more full kind of breakout holistic season in MLS before he gets those opportunities else like overseas.
I think so. I mean, it's a gamble for a club to pay big money for him, just based on what we've seen in Canada.
Not as proven, yeah. But and also, I don't think it'd be. I mean, it'd be, I think, hard for the Whitecaps not to sell him if they got a good offer.
Oh no, you'd have to, yeah. And it's like for Ali, for his development, he needs to probably take that step sooner rather than later as well.
That's
because
true.
It's like you do hit a bit of a plateau, and if you haven't continued your upward motion, you start to dip after that. Two players I would throw into your category.
Blackman?
Reasons.
Blackman?
No. Well, maybe on the outskirts of that. I think Alessandro Shop, without wanting to pile on him again, just because I still don't think we've seen what he can be. But for a different reason, Sam Adekugbe. But it's just disappointing because his injuries have derailed him.
Yeah. I feel disappointed for Sam that he has not been able to, because obviously, care for him so much and really want the best for him. And as a Whitecap, you only get to see. Didn't he score with his head again this year?
Yeah,
which is crazy to me. Which is awesome. But
I mean, he's had a disappointing season, but for different reasons.
Like in a month from now, we're going to be sitting down. Literally, in a month from now, we're going to be sitting down, and I know that one of the things you'll say is, "I hope that Santa's putting an injury-free season under the tree for Santa."
Yeah, I mean, as you say, like we've known him for so long, we want the best for him. It's great that he's back here, but we haven't seen the Sam that we know that Sam is. And again, the more that it goes on, you start to think, are we going to see that Sam?
Yeah. And he's still, again, like Ali, he's still a player who gets in the side for the national team. He gets called up. He gets he's a player of the national team.
Times that he's played, like down the stretch for the Whitecaps, he was electric in some of those games.
Yes.
And that's adds to the frustration of
the Portland match, right? He was great in that.
Yeah. So I mean that's a fair one. If we move on to young player of the year.
Oh, we're gonna go back positive?
Yeah.
Okay.
All the rest should be pretty positive. Young player of the year. I'm giving a hat tip to Sebastian Berhalter, who I'm going to just sneak in at 23. I think 23 is probably your cutoff for young player of the year.
Isn't 21 got to be the cutoff for this?
No, because we give like an Academy League One player of the year and stuff as well. So I'm doing it at 23. But I'm giving it to Isaac Boehmer anyway, who is younger. Now, obviously, that is all based on one game in particular, the Canadian Championship final.
Yeah, that'll feature my awards next week, that game.
Yes, I think it's going to feature on a few,
maybe multiple awards.
Yeah, a few different things, saves, performance. I mean, Isaac is 23 and he's just turned 23. Actually, just this week, 2 days after me, it was his birthday on November 20th. So he had a good year winning the Canadian Championship, but he also had a good season with WFC too as well. So for me, that's why I've given it to him. Is there anyone else for you though that is in the discussion for a standout young player this year?
Not really. No one with contributions that make you say, oh, they kind of can stand up next to Isaac. So for me, it's I think Isaac, and I really, it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. What Vanni said in the end of season press conference, the whole 1A, 1B with the goalkeepers next year, and like, hey, I'm committed to getting Isaac more minutes next year. What is that going to look like, and what it means for the position, like that position and those individuals for the long term? I think I said it on the last show that I wouldn't be disappointed, even if maybe he's not super ripe.
I think some of the fans though as well, after the MLS game that he did get, where there was a few wobbles.
I've kind of put that out of my mind.
Yeah, I would as well.
That was really bad.
I wouldn't be surprised if Isaac gets the cups next year. So Champions Cup, Leagues Cup, and Canadian Championship.
Yeah, okay. It is more, I guess, more, but it doesn't feel enough. And I guess it wouldn't be out of the way getting an odd one in the MLS as well too. I'd
give Isaac if there's some trips out east, like give him one of those.
Yeah.
Like Yohei have a rest and stuff.
Yeah.
Of course, we'll see, I guess, how things go
But anyways, good show for Young Player of the Year.
Yeah.
What's our next one?
WFC2 Player of the Year that I know you haven't really watched, so I'll kind of mostly talk in this. And we mentioned Nicolas Florio-Chateau, and I haven't given it to him. I've got him just pipped. I've given it to Elliot Goldthorpe, the 23-year-old Englishman. He was a draft pick, came from Hofstra. He came highly rated as well. He spent time as a youth with Man United, the bulk of his youth time at Leeds, then Bradford City, where he broke into the first team, went out on loan to non-league, and then headed over to college, NCAA. He had a fantastic debut season with Whitecaps too, 23 overall appearances. He co-led the team with Nico with 10 goals, 8 in the regular season, 2 in the playoffs. And he co-led the team with 6 assists, along with Mikhail Gerasimennikov. Now, Nico also had 10 goals and 5 assists from 2 more appearances. Elliot technically made his first team appearance because he came on as an 89th minute sub against Tijuana Leagues Cup. Nico was good with WFC2 and fully earned his contract. But when Elliot, he had some injuries this year as well. When Elliot was out of the team, you kind of noticed it a little bit more. He was kind of the glue that stuck a lot of it together. So I'm really curious how he performs. He'll definitely be involved, I would imagine, pre-season camp. I don't think he'll get a contract right away, but I'm curious how he starts next year, because he's a guy that is knocking on the door, and we do need goal scorers.
Yeah. What about, I guess he left, so it wasn't an option for you. If he had stayed, would Jay Herdman been in this conversation for you?
He'd have probably been third, I think, maybe for me in the team.
Okay.
Again, favouring the offensive guys.
Yeah.
The problem with the twos is there's so much rotation.
Right.
And there was guys that were away with Canada at U20s. There was injuries to a few of the guys. There was like academy guys coming in and just suspensions. So it was hard. The defence in particular and the midfield, but defence, just it was rotation, which is what the team's for. But Elliot Goldthorpe was a staple, and for me, I think deserves that one. Unsung hero. I can't remember who we gave it to last year. I meant to look this up because I think it might have been the same one. But Sebastian Berhalter.
Didn't he win like the official club one?
Did, yeah. And I think it was justified. 2 goals, 6 assists. His joint best year for goals, his best ever year for assists. And maybe he's not unsung because he is getting all these plaudits. But I just think his versatility is just so needed on this team.
I don't think I can disagree with that one.
The next one, again, you won't really be able to have too much input into it, but it's my Academy League One BC Player of the Year.
Let me guess. You've gone for Matteo Samori.
How did you know?
I don't know. He scored a bunch of goals, right?
Yeah. 18-year-old, born in Milan, moved to Canada, played with Calgary Foothills and then the Alberta Rex Academy. Came to the Whitecaps Academy here in Vancouver in 2020. He was the joint highest scorer in the Fraser Valley Soccer League, your favourite second soccer league in Canada. At under 19 level in the 23-24 season, had 11 goals, which was 5th in the league overall. Had a couple of goals in the cup as well. Followed up that season where he was joint leader on the League One team with David Ajagbe and Sydney Wathuta with 4 goals. Also led the team with 3 assists. He's headed off to college now, as the police come to get me. University of Maryland, Baltimore Receivers. That's a mouthful. Rookie season, 2 goals, 1 assists. And yeah, just had a good League One season, good academy season as well. So Matteo Samori gets that honour.
I concur.
Last year, we introduced our female award for the first time, and it was won by Geneva Hernandez-Gray. Congratulations, by the way, to Geneva on getting her second call up to the senior team.
Mm-hmm.
This year, Geneva had another good season, but I've given my female Whitecaps Player of the Year to Kiera Blundell, 10 goals and 7 assists for the Whitecaps, and she left at the end of June.
Yeah.
Because she had to go down for her NCAA season. And she's had a fantastic season with Arizona Sun Devils, was the Big 12 Freshman of the Year, 9 goals and 6 assists in 19 games in her rookie college season. She is one hell of a talent, and there's no doubt at all she will be playing for the Rise one day. Maybe next season.
Yeah.
Her parents might disagree with that, because when I spoke to them, they were like, no, she's doing college. She's already, like, one of the girls that's still on the League One team said, oh, let's redo it all in League One next year. And she's like, yep. So I think she is coming back to play League One in the summer.
And she can do that with an American school? That's okay?
You can, because it's academy. She couldn't go and play with the Rise. That would be the...
Oh, right, because she's playing with other amateurs.
Yeah, and it's academy folk that she's gone back to and stuff.
Yeah.
So that is it for the Whitecaps chat for this episode. Still a lot of football chat to come. And whereas from a Whitecaps perspective, they said goodbye to one head coach this week, the organisation said hello to another, or rather a welcome back to another, as Anja Heiner-Moller was announced the first ever head coach of Vancouver Rise. And we'll be back talking to her and hearing all about the latest as the Rise get set for their inaugural season in the NSL after we hear from this episode's Britpop song.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Labbe, and you're listening to the AFTN Soccer Show.
I would like to leave this city. This old town don't smell too pretty, and I can feel the warning signs running around my mind. And when I leave this island, I book myself into a soul asylum, 'cause I can feel the warning signs running around my mind. So here I go, still scratching around in the same old hole. My body feels young, but my mind is very old. So what do you say? You can't give me the dreams that are mine anyway. I've been lost, I've been found, but I don't feel bound.
Welcome back to the AFTN Soccer Show on CITR Radio 101.9 FM. And kicking off this part, it's this episode's Britpop song. If you haven't been with us for the last few weeks and months, we are paying tribute to the 30th anniversary of Britpop, playing a song a week that was released this week, or round about this week, 30 years ago. And we'll be doing that for this year and into next year. This is actually the last one, though, that we are going to play this year, because the next show comes out in December, and that's when we get into our festive 15. So I've ended our 2024 Britpop tribute with a song that was released in December 1994, and it's by the band I think pretty much everyone most associates with Britpop, from Manchester, Oasis, and that was a standalone single that was released in December 30 years ago. It entered and peaked at number 3 in the UK charts, number 1 in the UK indie charts. And the main song, the main single, was Whatever. It was a non-album single that was between their first two albums. But what I've played there is one of the B-sides from it. It was a 4-track EP featuring one of my favourite songs, actually, from the debut album, Slide Away. But that was a B-side, Half the World Away, one of the best Oasis songs, in my opinion. And you find that with a few of their B-sides, that Don't Look Back in Anger, some of their strongest stuff, some of the best songs Noel has written, have appeared as B-sides on various singles over the years. That song as well was also used as the theme song to the brilliant BBC comedy The Royal Family. It's been used in a John Lewis advert for Christmas over the years as well. And it's just an absolutely fantastic Oasis song, a fantastic Britpop song to end our songs that we've been playing this year. We'll have more to come, though, when we kick our shows off in January. And the song there was Half the World Away, and Vancouver Rise have a new head coach. And she has come from literally half the world away. Danish head coach Anja Heiner-Moller has been named Vancouver Rise's first head coach in the club history. The 46-year-old comes back to Vancouver after spending 3 years as the Whitecaps girls' academy coach from 2018 to 2022, along with working on the North Shore with the North Shore Girls Soccer Club. When COVID hit, Anja and her husband Kenneth, who stepped down as Canadian women's national team head coach in June 2020, both headed back to jobs in Denmark. Interestingly, both are now back in North America on the West Coast in new roles, but we'll come back to that in a little bit. Anja gave up playing soccer herself, aged just 25. She had played at the Euros for Denmark, played at a really top level, wanted to go into coaching, and that's what she's done since she was 25 years old. So over 2 decades of experience now in the coaching field. She holds a UEFA Pro licence, and she comes back to Vancouver after stints with Denmark's under-16 women's team, and most recently the side that she's currently in charge with, the Danish under-19 team. And Anja was introduced to media on Thursday morning. So I'm going to bring you some audio in this part from Anja herself, some questions that we asked Steph Labbe, the Director of Football for the Rise, and the Rise's President Sinead King as well. But we'll kick things off by hearing from the woman of the moment herself. Here's the new gaffer, Anja Heiner-Moller. Hi there, Anja. Congratulations on the job. Welcome back to Vancouver. You touched on it there. You've been in Vancouver before. You know the city. You've maybe seen some of these young players that's already been coming through. How did this opportunity come about? Did you reach out to the Rise? Did they get in touch with you? And how much did Kenneth's new job in San Diego kind of factor into things, just so that you're at least closer together?
Yeah, thank you for the question, Michael. Lot of things in there. Yeah, so I saw there was an opportunity in Vancouver Rise, and I did the application, I did the interviews and all this stuff. Yeah, just amazing to see this opportunity, and I known from since we left that this league was being built, so I definitely just had all the social media turned on to see all the news. So definitely followed it from this 9-hour time difference to Denmark. Yeah, and now you mentioned, you talked about the girls coming through. I coached a lot of the young girls while I was there because, that was what was meant for me at that time. And these girls are just so much in love with soccer, and their parents as well. And there's a huge potential. And in Vancouver, sport is big. So that joy and dedication from these girls who just loves the game was amazing. And then Kenneth got the opportunity to go to San Diego. So we had huge decisions to make at the same time. And we decided these are two careers, and we couldn't say no to any of these. We wanted to say two yeses. So that's what we've done. And you're totally right. We're on the West Coast, both of us. For Denmark, which is really small, this is a huge distance. But for Canadians, this is just the West Coast. I like that. And we'll get this to work.
That is very true. And I read an interview with you where you said you always like to say yes to opportunities. And you just mentioned there it was two yeses. Your own coaching journey, you stopped playing age 25. Was that just because the passion was to get into coaching, or were the opportunities maybe not there for you?
Yeah, opportunities were definitely different at that time. I had to choose between my studies. I have a master's degree in sports science, and it was hard to get these two careers going at the same time. And I happened to meet Kenneth at the time as well, and I kind of had to make decisions on what to do. So I jumped directly into coaching, and I haven't been out of it ever since. We have two daughters, so that of course gave some space to use time with them as well. But yes, like you read, I've said yes all the time, and this is the biggest yes I've done, and also the one that I really, in my heart, feel I'm so lucky to get this opportunity. So of course, yes, please.
Anja, you're the second Danish coach so far to be announced in the NSL. Have you chatted with Katrine Pedersen at Ottawa about being in the league at the same time? And are you excited to go up against another Danish coach?
Yeah, this is really special. I got a message just an hour ago with an official welcome to Canada, she wrote. I haven't been able to discuss this job with her, but I've definitely listened to her considerations around this Canadian league. Think it's amazing for both of us to be part of this first season and build these teams. And I know Kat very well. I'm excited for her, and I'm of course excited for Vancouver Rise as well, and me.
As you come in, and this is a completely new team, it's sort of like a blank canvas for you as a coach. So for the fans that are anticipating what this team might be, what kind of identity or philosophy do you want to bring to this team on the playing field and maybe even off of the field as well?
Yeah, so I'll start on the field. Of course, we need to build everything here, culture, the team, and the style of play as well. I have a big heart for the attacking kind of play, the possession-based, the flexible, dynamic football where you can change things, and this can change the game as well. So that's kind of on the field what I really feel passionate about, and the way I've been coaching always. Outside, this is about opportunity to create leaders and role models. So we have a huge opportunity to inspire a lot of girls and boys and youth in Vancouver with this team, and I'm really looking forward to that.
Building off of your response there, what does it mean to you to be part of this opportunity to build this league in Canada and to inspire another generation, many more generations, we hope, of young players?
First of all, to follow this league being made through the last, I think it's 3, maybe more than 3 years, has been amazing, and like an excitement growing. Because I just knew that these players that really has this huge potential, they need to go outside Canada. Now they can stay in. And for Canada to have this league is just a huge deal breaker in this. So I just feel the joy for these girls also to have a women's team to look up to that is... that's something big. And I remember the young girls, which that's also why I was fascinated. They had Sinclair on their posters in the rooms, and now they can have more posters And yeah, so that's great.
Some initial thoughts there from Anja Heiner-Moller. And I know there was some disappointment in some quarters that it wasn't Katie Collar that got the job after the fantastic year that she's had. But the club have been very consistent, saying that they wanted somebody that had international experience. Katie is a fantastic candidate, and I think she will be a future head coach in the NSL, whether here in Vancouver, maybe her home or Calgary or wherever. And when you chat to Anja, what comes across first and foremost is she's such a lovely person. Her enthusiasm for the job. She loves the city. And she jumped at the chance to come back. And people won't be too familiar with her. Obviously, Canadian soccer fans will certainly know her surname, with her husband Kenneth being John Herdman's assistant before taking over the national team himself in 2018. Now, interestingly, Zach, Kenneth Heiner-Moller just appointed to a new role himself this month, TD of MLS expansion side San Diego. So, I mean, it's going to be testing, obviously, for them being apart. At least they are, in North American terms, close, but in Danish terms, not so much. But, I mean, I was surprised that he got that TD job, I've got to say. But, I mean, it's interesting they're both now back on the West Coast. Also interesting is that she's the second Danish coach announced from the 5 NSL sides. Katrine Pedersen is in Ottawa. Calgary have still to appoint their head coach, but that means that at least half of the coaches in the league in the inaugural season will be led by non-Canadian coaches. Robert Risitoyu is in Montreal, and again, that will undoubtedly disappoint some. But I think there is a big reason for that, and we kind of touched on it earlier. Anja holds a UEFA Pro license, and that is a rarity amongst female coaches in Canada, especially in BC. I got someone to kind of look into some of the figures that were put out by BC Soccer, and they're not fully up to date, but the last ones that they could find was that there was no pro license holders in BC amongst female coaches. And only 5 women in BC hold A licenses, with a couple of dozen holding B licenses. And that is part of the reason that Anja has got this job. She's got that A license. She's heavily qualified. She's been involved in the national team setup. And while some will be disappointed that it's not a Canadian coach, there's a lot of work to be done in that side of the game here.
It feels a little bit, again, like with CPL, this is like chicken and egg, right?
Yeah.
Getting my limited understanding of this is getting like your UEFA license isn't super cheap.
No.
Right? And so
it's very time constraining as well. It's like it takes up so much of your time.
So to spend all that time and money doing that when you have no job, or your job opportunities are limited to other parts of the world or the States or whatever, and hopefully we'll see an increase in coach development, both from people investing in themselves, but also maybe, I don't know how it fully works, but CSA or whatever, maybe investing in coaches on the women's side in a better way. That seems like it would be a prudent thing to do in the moment like this.
Well, I mean, I had an interesting chat with someone this week, and they were saying it's difficult for women to get those top licenses for a number of reasons. And one of them was what you've just said there, like the cost, but also a lot of them, so many female players and female coaches, the professions that they're involved in, there's a lot in teaching, there's a lot in healthcare, and they have to focus on their jobs. And also, if you're a woman that wants to have a family, sometimes your chance to get your career up and running is a small window.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's totally another aspect to it. What's it? So is Carm not going to be a coach in this league?
At the moment, no. I mean, she's maybe happy as assistant in NWSL. Yeah, maybe the money in NWSL is going to be higher than the money here.
True, very true.
Like what sold this one for Anja coming over is her husband's now over here. she knows the city. She's coming back to it from being an academy coach. She loves the city. Her and Kenneth came and visited when they'd finished working here, and they love it so much. So it was all that excitement factors into it. So when you come into a city that you love, you'll maybe take a lower wage maybe than you can get, but also the chance to be part of something from the ground level will interest some people. Someone like Karam's been there and done that, and it's like she's wanting a more established kind of role, and maybe she's in line for the women's national team job.
True.
And to me, she's the prime candidate right now, unless they bring in a foreign coach.
They would never do that.
It hasn't worked out so well, you have to say, with a few of the more recent ones. But yeah, you totally see why Anja got this job. There was a lot of coaches interviewed for it. So Steph Labbe also chatted a little bit this week about why Anja Heiner-Moller was the right pick for the job, and also spoke a little bit about building the Rise roster as well. Here's what she had to say about that. So I think from what we've talked about there, from what you heard Anja say herself, it's obvious why she has been selected as the head coach of this team that is just about to kick off its inaugural season. Let's hear, though, some thoughts from Steph Labbe, one of the people tasked with not just finding a head coach, but building this Rise roster for 2025. And Gemma from Canadian Press asked Steph why Anja was the right person for that job. And then I just had a little follow-up for Steph as well, just based on how this roster will get put together, who is going to be making the decisions. Here's what she had to say.
Steph, can you talk to us a little bit about the process you went through in picking a coach? How many candidates were you looking at? How long did this take? What was it that tipped you into Anja's favor at the end there?
Yeah, we went through a formal hiring process. So we had put out the job posting and we had a ton of interest in it, which was overwhelming, but also very, very exciting. I think it shows not only the global reach of this league and the talk that's happening around it and the excitement that's happening around it. I think also the growth of women's soccer, that there's so many top quality candidates out there that could have a job like this. So narrowing it down was not an easy task. But yeah, we narrowed it down to a handful, maybe a little bit more of top quality coaches. And from the first interview we had with Anja, I could see that our vision and goals really aligned well, along with playing style, the type of football we want to play in front of the Vancouver fans, the exciting attacking style minded. As much as I'm a goalkeeper, I love attacking football and I love seeing teams that create a lot of chances, that have really dynamic play and exciting players that, I think it enlighten and elicit excitement in our fans. Like I want our fans to come to games and be entertained and be excited about the players and the team in front of them. And so having that aligned with Anja and then continuing to go through the process, I think just seeing her attention to detail, her tactical knowledge, as well as what she spoke about, her experiences in working with a national team will be very similar to working with a team that's coming together for the first time, with these players coming from all different environments and finding a way to build a culture and really get a team of players who have not played together to really click in a short period of time. So I think that was something that was really exciting for me, is to have a coach that kind of has that type of an experience to be able to bring a team together of individuals and really create a team. So those are a couple of things. And then I think lastly, just Anja's character and her passion for wanting to help athletes not just grow as athletes, but also as individuals and as humans, and that connection to the youth, to be able to have good experiences of working with youth players. Obviously, we have a fantastic academy. So when we have players coming up from the academy into the pro team, knowing that we have a coach that knows how to coach them, knows how to work with them and pay attention to those details so that those players feel included, welcome, and that their development and growth is really what matters. I think all of those things are what led us to wanting Anja to lead our team.
So in terms of like roster building and player decisions, how will that work out? Like, does Anja come to you and say, this is the kind of player I want, or I've had this player before, I'd like to bring them in? Are you looking at just having players that's primarily come through the Whitecaps, or we've got obviously a very good UBC team that's just won back-to-back nationals here? Are all these players in the mix as well?
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for this question. It's something that Anja and I are already working on together. It's something that I started months ago in terms of starting to look at how we want to build this roster, what are our key factors, and then mixing that in with style of play and values that both we have as a club and Anja, which are very much aligned. So first and foremost, looking to bring in players with professional experience. I think that's a key to make sure that we have leaders in the locker room. We have players that have been through a professional year, a professional season. They can bring that professionalism to help teach as well. Those younger players, maybe those academy players, local UBC players, or players from other local universities. Really giving those local players, I think, a chance to be able to come through the local systems and then be able to continue their journey right here at home. But it's also important to make sure that we have that high level of play, top quality players coming in, whether they're Canadians or internationals, to really build a top quality squad that can not only compete and be successful in the NSL, but also in future CONCACAF Champions Cups in the future as well.
So Steph Labbe there, speaking about Anja and how her and the club share the same visions, the same goals, and also, crucially, they want to have the same kind of playing style. They want to be attack-minded. And I think that will be pleasing for the fans. Anja's experiences with the national teams will also obviously help, because putting together this Rise team for year one, even if you are promoting a few of the academy girls that know each other and have played together, even bringing some of the ones back from the college scene down in NCAA, you are bringing in a whole new team. You need them to click and to gel right away. And as Steph said there, Anja has to be the person that can create a team from individuals. And she certainly seems very capable of doing that. Now, as for the playing personnel, a lot of groundwork has already been done by the club in terms of recruitment. So I'm not sure how much input Anja will have in some of those choices. Steph has already done a lot, and the club want to bring in players first and foremost that have professional experience, to add leadership and experience of what a professional year looks like. And that is absolutely crucial. Because if you look at the girls that's been playing in League One for the Girls Elite, even the ones that's gone off to college, these are players that are used to 3-month seasons. Whether it's a 3-month season in League One, whether it's a 3-month season in NCAA or U Sports. So they're not used to a lengthy 8-9-month season, which is what the Northern Super League is going to be. And that will be a little bit of a culture shock to them, a kind of shock to the system. So having those older players that's been there, done that, is absolutely crucial. So it's going to be interesting to see what the mix is going to be. There will be local players in the mix, but the bulk of them have to be surrounded by players that have played at the top of the game. And I personally hope we can see some of the UBC Thunderbirds girls that have won back-to-back nationals. So much talent in that side and throughout U Sports in BC. Trinity Western as well, a top-level club. You've got the likes of Tilly James there that has been standing out. So it's going to be interesting to see who is going to be on this roster. And there's going to be a lot of announcement coming now in the next few weeks and the next few months, because the clock is ticking pretty fast on the team to get up and running and ready for this season that will kick off in April. One of the first announcements, with the sounds of it, is going to be the rest of the coaching staff. And you have to think Katie Collar is going to have a big role to play in that. But also everyone is eagerly awaiting the stadium news. Where will the Rise play? Will it be at Burnaby? Many of us will have seen the proposal and read about the proposal that the club has given to the city of Burnaby to play at Swangard. They want Swangard to be the club's long-term home. And to do that, the Rise want the city to invest into the stadium, to make upgrades, to have more seating, to have more facilities. And there's been a little bit of chatter, let us just say, out there as to whether the Rise are wanting to have Swangard all to themselves or to share it with the likes of Whitecaps 2, TSS Rovers. There's rumours that there's a Major League Rugby side that want to come in and play there. So Har and myself put some questions about the stadium to Rise President Sinead King. Here's what she had to say on the matter.
In regarding the stadium options or plans, there's been some documents about Swangard Stadium that surfaced. Is that where the Rise would like to play? I know there was mention regarding upgrades to the stadium. What's happening with that in the city of Burnaby? And if there was upgrades, how much would Vancouver Rise pay or put in place for those upgrades?
Stadium continues to be one of my hot topics, and I know everybody is eager to find out where we're going to be playing. As you mentioned, we have made a proposal with the city of Burnaby to do a partnership at the Swangard Stadium, and that would entail various stadium upgrades if we were to be there. We're continuing to explore options with other municipalities for alternative stadiums as well, and we're just making sure that what we land on is appropriate for our 2025 season, and the stadiums are functional for the needs of a professional league and a professional club and professional players coming into market. So continuing to work with the different municipalities on those solutions, and as soon as we have something to share, we will absolutely be sharing it with our fans and the wider community.
Just with regards to the stadium, obviously there's existing tenants such as TSS Rovers who also have a women's team there. Part of the proposals seem to look for exclusivity. Is the plan, if you get in, a club like TSS, who's called that stadium home since 2017, wouldn't be able to play there?
Interesting, it seemed that we were looking for exclusivity, because we definitely would not be. We know how important community is within the city of Burnaby, and there's some fantastic sports teams that already play there today. Our view is that we can be there with those that are already there. It would be 12 home games in that first opening season, which isn't a significant amount. You've got the likes of WFC2, TSS you mentioned. We would want to collaborate. We would hope that by having a professional team in there, we were enhancing and improving the experience for those teams and their fans as well, but definitely not looking to go in and push others out.
So Sinead King there, just talking about the stadium situation for the Rise and saying they haven't asked for exclusivity, even though that is what was noted in the Burnaby City report. Now, maybe they've just got the wrong end of the stick and they've put that down, or maybe things have moved on.
Well, I've read their proposal. You've read their proposal. Yeah. They were asking for exclusivity.
Yeah, that's what it said. But I mean, Sinead's saying they're not. There's room for everyone. In year one, there's just the 12 games. The problem they are having, though, is dates are already booked for festivals next year. Mm-hmm. TSS have got their dates booked. They've said they don't want double headers with WFC2, but the WFC2 schedule is going to be out before the Rise one. Mm-hmm. They might be forced into doing that, which I don't think is the worst thing. I know they want to be their own thing in their own right, but more bang for your buck, maybe?
It's kind of hard, though, because traditionally Whitecap season ticket holders get WFC2 games for free.
Yeah,
they wouldn't be true double headers like back in the day, right? You would go. I don't know if all the games weren't double headers, but was there separate season? I think there was separate season tickets, but there was definitely double headers, because I remember I went to lots of them, most of them, I think, in fact, back in the day at Swangard. I understand why they don't want them, and I think they're probably right to not want them. But
no, they are, but they might have their hands tied. Maybe the odd double header or something. But
I think ultimately this is what happens when you're doing this so late in the process.
Yeah, and they are, because if this Swangard thing falls down, like
they're going to Thunderbird.
I don't know. I mean, they're talking to other municipalities. but there's no other stadium ready right now for what they're looking for. And if Burnaby say no and maybe don't say no till January, you're 3 months to find somewhere?
Yeah.
And Thunderbird's not fully functional for that either. It's just horrible in general. I mean, you can do a little bit. I don't know. I mean, Sinead says it's basically filling her waking thoughts, and I imagine it is, because it's huge.
No, this is massive.
It could be a big determining factor for a number of people as to whether they even go to the games or not, because folk don't want to go up to UBC.
Yeah. Well, UBC, it's hard to get to, and it's far away for no matter where you are typically. I was going to say, because I know we talked about this before, is Percy Perry not an option?
No, it's still an option.
Okay. Because to me, that's got to be the backup for them if they want to stay.
I was told that was where things were leaning at one point until this proposal then went to Burnaby City. So
if they're staying on that side of the river and the Swangard thing won't work out, surely they can. You can do. I mean, other than the fact that it's not grass, you can do what you wanted to do at Swangard. You can do at Percy Perry in what, for me, in my opinion, is a little bit of aside from the grass thing, is probably a little bit of a nicer locale. And with the SkyTrain access, it's obviously a little bit further. The SkyTrain access makes it great. But if you're a Rise supporter, you can have a meaningful march walking off the SkyTrain to the stadium. There's so much you can do there that would be meaningful and fun, and
it's a beautiful setting there in Lafarge Lake, and I'll be going back out to see the lights at Lafarge again. But they need to get this sorted soon. It's massive, absolutely massive for them.
Totally.
That is it for our Vancouver Rise chat. Things moving on. They do say there's going to be some more announcements coming in the coming weeks in terms of coaching staff and players. So we'll bring you that on the show. It's not it, though, for our women's soccer chat. That was the good news story that made the news cycles this past week in Canadian women's soccer circles. Unfortunately, though, Saturday and Sunday saw more fallout from Dronegate and some damning stuff written by the Globe and Mail about the culture in the Canadian women's national team and beyond. And we'll be back chatting about all of that after this.
Hi, I'm Ryan Gold, and you're listening to the AFTN Soccer Show.
Welcome back to the AFTN Soccer Show on CITR Radio 101.9 FM. And kicking off this part, we're taking you back to 1994 again. But when I was looking to see what songs had been released this week and next week for that section to pick my selection for the episode, I saw this song listed in the UK indie charts for the first week of December. So the song was released this week, 30 years ago, November 1994. And I've played it once before on the show in our Three of a Kind section that we were doing for a while, which I will bring back because I really did enjoy doing that section. But I saw it and I thought, oh, such a cracking song. Got to dig that one out. So it's a UK US band that wasn't really Britpop sounding. It was more like glam sounding from the 70s, really. And it was a band based out in New York called Nancy Boy. And this was their single, Johnny Chrome and Silver, which was to feature on their second album that wasn't released until 1996, also by the name of Nancy Boy. Now, the interesting thing about this band is it had two famous musicians' sons in it. The lead singer, Donovan Leitch, is the son of famous 60s, 70s folk rock singer Donovan, who hailed from Glasgow in Scotland. And the second member of the band that is a famous son is Jason Nesmith, the son of Monkees' Michael Nesmith. And yeah, I just thought it's a very good song. When I saw it had come out this week, as I said, I had to play it in the show. Dug the album out as well, so been playing that in the car this week. So I hope you enjoyed that one. But enough of the music chat. Let's get back to the football chat now. And we're going to continue the women's soccer chat in this part. Now, Friday night, I drew up the rundown for the show, sent a provisional draft off to Zach. It was a fun, light-hearted show. Had a feature interview to bring you. We were giving out awards, just talking about the new coaching hire, lots of positive stuff. And then a whole plan, really, of the podcast, the whole structure of it, thrown out the window by Vanni Sartini's firing on Monday morning. And on Saturday, an article that got published in the Globe and Mail kind of sent where we were going to start this podcast off in a different direction. A very damning article all about the culture within the Canadian women's national team these last few years and how deep-rooted some of the problems were, who knew what was going on. There's been accusations, there's been denials, there's been statements, there's been lawyers putting statements out, and a lot of chats have been had publicly on social media, privately, via direct messages. I had a lot of interesting chats with various people yesterday. But yes, the story that sadly keeps giving, and not in a good way, it's another bruising week for the reputation of the previous Canada soccer regime. And I want to stress previous because I had some discussions on social media about this as well with various people. I genuinely believe in my heart of heart, and I hope it is true and it's not just because I want to believe this, that under Kevin Blue, Peter Agruso, I do think things have changed big time at Canada Soccer, under Jesse Marsh as well, and whoever's going to come into the women's team on a full-time basis. So I think big changes and leaps and bounds have been made. So I don't worry about the future. Aside from perhaps the past may bring so much of it just falling down.
Yeah.
I think that is a big worry just now because, like we've spoken about DroneGate, we touched on it last week. I don't know how much we'll go into this in this episode because I think there's probably going to be more stuff coming out because this story, Bev Priestman issued a statement on Friday night that seemingly was out of the blue. Then the Globe and Mail article dropped on Saturday and it's like, okay, that makes a lot of sense. Then Bev Priestman's lawyer issued I don't know if it was a statement. Apparently it appeared on her LinkedIn thing today, but it was then used in another Globe and Mail article, and it's just been doing the rounds, and various folk have sent that to me. I sent it to you as well. And it's not so much about the drone issue, although that's been touched on, but it's about the culture from probably the last 10 years, maybe, at Canada Soccer, a culture of drinking, bullying, harassment, leaking of complaints, and a work atmosphere that some folk found very upsetting, some folk found very uncomfortable, and where things swept under the carpet. I mean, there's so many questions come out of this Globe and Mail article, and we'll say straight off the bat that Bev Priestman's lawyer has said a lot of the accusations in it are not accurate. Jasmine Mander's lawyer has said the same thing. It's damning. There's a lot of fingers being pointed at Bev, at Jasmine, other people within Canada Soccer, and I know you've read it as well. So, just what were your thoughts when you read it all?
Well, as you're going through things like this, as we talked about with a number of issues, two things can be true at the same time. Like there are things in this that are very concerning and frustrating, and they just sound wrong. But again, I think there's also some things where you're reading them and you're like, that sounds like part of sport culture. Like, for example, this coach X, Y, or Z had a win at all costs mentality. Obviously, I think you and I would assume that means without cheating, but
yes.
But in general, the sense of like winning is so important to you. It's the primary thing you're there for. You'd think that would be kind of the mentality of everyone in sport and every coach. But anyways, we'll talk about it in more detail, I think. But
well, like just on that, and going back to what we said at the start about Ted Lasso, episode 10 of season 1, where Ted's like, oh, well, it doesn't matter about winning. And Coach B is like, it fucking does. That's what they do. And at the professional level, that is exactly what you're there to do. And I've got to admit, I read that bit, and we talked about it before we recorded, and I was like, I don't see anything wrong with that. But it's how you go about
it,
achieving that.
Because I think one could argue that Ted Lasso's approach to all that was like, I'm going to get the best out of these human beings by treating them well with respect, but also helping them grow as human beings so that they can then use their gifts and abilities and talents to the utmost, so that all the other things of life, that maybe the frustrations in their life right now or the wounds of their past, will not prevent them from performing their best. He had a different approach to it, but I still think, even though he would say, "Oh yeah, winning's not the most important thing here," I think he knows that in his profession it is.
I was thinking about stuff that was said last week when I was saying about the drone gate thing. In the grand scheme of world football, it's not that huge because so many places do it, so many things never gets reported, folk don't get caught. Now, I was thinking about that, and I was like, I'm not saying it's right to do that.
Right.
Because it's not.
It is not right to do it.
Morally and ethically, that's not how I would want my teams to win. Despite me saying win at all costs. But it's what we've talked about. Win at all costs, but morally and ethically. And not breaking laws. And just because everyone's doing it doesn't make it right. But it does lesser the impact of it because other folk are doing it. And we won't go into the whole drone thing because this is a lot more than that. It's the whole culture. And you do have to have those tough discussions sometimes with staff. And I was a manager for years, and it's like you have awkward discussions. But there's a way of doing it in a way that doesn't belittle them, that doesn't lead to them then making a complaint about how, and having a work environment where people are terrified of losing their job. And that seems to have been the running thing in this with the drones and everything. If I speak up, if I don't do what I'm going to do, I'm going to get frozen out. And I won't get to work in Canadian soccer. And as we know, There's not a lot of jobs in Canadian soccer sometimes in various areas.
And again, that's one of the things that shows that the individuals involved or leading it or ordering it or overseeing it or whatever knew that it was wrong, right? Like they knew, they had people coming saying, I don't feel comfortable doing this. Like, shut up and do it or get out. It's like, yeah, it's wrong when you're having to deal with these conversations and these issues. I mean, the whole HR email, right? Like there's all these things where it's like, yeah, they knew what they were doing was not right, but they kept on doing it. And again, I know, maybe we'll talk about this more later, but I think ultimately it feels like some of the statements from Bev Priestman's lawyer or Bev Priestman's LinkedIn account or whatever, it kind of feels like she's holding up fingers, one pointing to the past, right, to her predecessor and John Herdman, and one pointing to her underling, Jasmine Mander.
Yeah.
And so I might be reading those statements wrong. I might be misunderstanding them, but it really feels like she's pointing those ways, deflecting those ways, and hoping that the brunt of all this lands on those individuals. But
yeah, I think she feels that she's been hung out to dry, and to an extent, yeah, she has been, but ultimately, you were the head coach of that team.
Yeah,
and these allegations. There's videos of some of the parties, and there's going to be folk maybe that haven't read this. So, I mean, if you haven't, definitely check out the Globe and Mail article. But in short, there was mandatory drinking sessions the night before matches.
Not for players.
Not for players, yes. For coaches and staff. And that is a very UK thing. I've been involved amongst football over there as well, and there's very much in the UK a culture of the team that drinks together wins together. And it's all about, we've all got to go out and drink, and it's bonding and all this stuff. Now, in modern day football, a lot of the top athletes don't drink.
Yeah.
Because it's like, well, I don't want to put shit into my body, and it's like I want to be at the top of my game. And in the UK, it's slightly different. And at my level with East Fife and stuff, it's like, we've spoken about this on our East Fife podcast. The drinking culture has derailed so much talent over there over the years. Like, you look at George Best back in the day.
Gaza.
Two fantastic examples. And it's like they get caught up in all that. And it's because they feel, well, I can't say no. And it's the same with gambling. There was Keith Gillespie, an Irish guy that played for Newcastle, had never bet in his life, but was taken to a bookmaker's and then got a gambling addiction.
Ruined his life.
And it's like, I just want to be with the guys because they're all doing this. And it's like that culture exists not just in football. When I worked in the bank, we all went out on a Friday night. We were open on a Saturday morning, and the nights got longer and longer, and there was a drinking culture, and the folk that went and the folk that stayed got on better with their careers. Promotions, you happen to have got this one. You've been out with the bosses on the Friday, all that kind of stuff. And it goes on there. And obviously John Herdman, Bev Priestman are from the UK. And I'm not saying it doesn't go on here as well, but you have to feel that's played into how that culture exists.
Yeah, I would not be surprised if some of this is kind of whatever innate socialized ways of doing things, from the UK, but
I mean, these
maybe
things,
we'll never know. But
there's videos showing folk doing conga lines and bathrobes, and I mean that it's harmless fun, but some of the stuff doesn't sound harmless fun, like being probed about sexual stuff or having sex toys thrown at you is one of the allegations.
Well, but okay, I agree with all those things you said there, except for, is it really should you feel comfortable in your workplace with your colleagues doing a conga line in bathrobes? Like, if you feel like you have to be there, like you don't want to be there, you know what I mean? Like,
all I'm saying is AFTN Christmas Party 2018. We'll just leave it at that.
Oh my God. Oh man.
I know I'm making light of it, and it isn't a funny thing, but you kind of, it's a dark topic and it's a dark article. And like, there's other stuff that's been mentioned, and a lot of stuff is coming out in this article about Jasmine Mander and how she has treated staff. And then Beth Priestman is kind of saying, well, there's been allegations against me and I feel that's unfair. So either Beth Priestman knew what Jasmine Mander was doing and either instructed her or turned a blind eye to it, or Beth Priestman had no idea what Jasmine Mander was doing. Jasmine Mander went rogue, which means you're a shit manager because you can't control your staff and you don't actually know what your staff are doing.
Yeah, either way, it doesn't look, you look like incompetent or a poor leader. And yeah.
And I mean, the statement that her lawyer released today, which some of you may have seen, some of you won't have. I just want to read the last little bit of it, because it says, Beth has never harassed anyone. Well, actually, I'll go back a little bit. It said, the recent article, so the Globe and Mail article, the recent article levies several fabricated claims against Bev. These are demonstratively being raised now to detract from the real story, without actually saying what the real story is. But Bev has never harassed anyone, yet this is targeting, designed to discredit and malign a gay woman in professional sports. Now, I've had a couple of discussions today with people in the LGBT plus community who said, are you going to be talking about this in the show? And I was like, yeah. And furious that card has been played in this, because at no point in this has Bev Priestman's sexuality been made an issue. And on that women's team, there are players in that community. And we don't know who's complained. We don't know who hasn't complained. Apparently, Bev Priestman does, though, because of complainants' names being leaked to her lawyer, which is absolutely reprehensible.
I seem to recall that happening in another situation.
Yes.
That just makes you shake.
I mean, that wasn't a leak, though. That was just somebody.
No, that was someone.
Which is bad enough.
Yeah.
After that leaked, it means somebody in that organization deliberately thought, okay, let's tip them off.
Yeah.
And that person, if they could find out who it is, needs to be fired immediately if they're still there. And who knows if they are. But it kind of shows morally and ethically again where the side is coming from, because it's like, oh, we've got this information. And I know that's a lawyer's job, and it happens a lot, sometimes by mistake. I can't remember if it was the Colleen Rooney court case where something got sent.
Oh.
It was that, or it was some high-profile court case. The lawyers
it might have been that one.
Yeah, and sent all this wrong information to the lawyer, and they're like, "Oh, thank you for this."
Yeah. It was like their defense or their
There's that, and there's leaking confidential complainants, and it totally is reprehensible.
Yeah, I mean, there's no defense for that. It's horrific.
But I don't see that Bev's being targeted for being a gay woman in sport.
No,
I think targeted for being in charge of this program where the culture is not good, and you've got complainants, you've got videos, you've got an email that back in the day said to HR, oh, this guy won't do what we're wanting to do with guarding the drones. What can we do to get rid of them? So admitting that they knew about the whole drone thing.
Yeah, which goes against what she basically said in Paris.
Like there's never been a mea culpa, which we talked about in last week's show of, yep,
I'm responsible.
And Jasmine Mander and her lawyer denying everything as well, and Bev and her lawyer.
The only one who has is Lombardi, because he was caught red-handed, right? There's so much. There's so much of this, Michael, that is crazy. You're right.
We could probably do a whole 3-hour show on it.
I think that her lawyer statements, she is trying to play to different communities to get their sympathy. Yeah, the women in sport crowd, like, look, this is a woman leader in sport who's done so many great things. Now they're tearing her down. The only question I would have in terms of the LGBTQ plus community, Michael, is do you think that her or her lawyer are bringing this up because the article goes into elements of her relation, like into basically saying she showed nepotism, or
it does mention her wife, I guess.
Yeah, her wife Emma Humphreys, who we've talked to and talked about, and in her role in coaching and youth stuff, and basically it alleges that she got the job because Bev wanted to give her wife a job.
Yeah.
So is that the reason why? You think that's the reason why?
That's do you know, I had only reason I can think of. No, that's a very, very valid question to ask. Maybe.
Having said that, I can definitely understand the opinion expressed to you about the frustration that it feels like she's trying to get sympathy from as many communities as possible.
Well,
in this,
when all this happened, there was no sympathy. Like in Dronegate, when that broke, there was no sympathy for Bev Priestman.
Anywhere,
if you looked at social media, from the women in sport crowd, from the LGBT plus community, it's like everyone was like, these players have suffered hell because of you.
Yeah.
So,
and I don't see there being any now either.
No. And I in one way, I do get what she's trying to say, which is the elephant in the room is it seems to all have come under John Herdman coming into the women's program, and folk maybe aren't going after him.
Yes, that's the other thing where I think the part of the point they're making, which again,
that I do agree with, but at the same time, are there videos showing stuff that John Herdman's done? Have there been complaints about John Herdman? None of that stuff's come out.
Oh, plus even the article says, look, Herdman declined to be involved before, but he's now under this other investigation where if he
disciplinary.
If he doesn't submit to it or is willing to be a part of it, they can just say, okay, you can't coach in our country for however long, forever.
Yeah, they could ban him forever. And the thing with Bev, like Bev Priestman isn't Canadian. She was here on a work permit. So it's like her future probably lies outside Canada now. And for her, it's actually for the best. And I also want to say, I've spoken to Bev and Emma Humphreys a lot over the last couple of years. And I've never had any issues with them. They've been lovely to deal with. Chatted with Emma loads this past League One season. It's like, oh, let me know about this player that's come in, and she would talk about all this stuff. And I found them great. I'm not on their staff. So I can only talk about how I found them, and they were both really good to deal with. And Jasmine Mander, I only knew a little bit from playing at UBC. I knew she was a rising coach. I had her pegged to probably get the Vancouver Rise job if she wanted it. I thought she was like moving up the pecking order and would maybe eventually take over one day in the women's thing. She was highly thought of in the coaching side.
Is she too Canadian for that job though?
I don't know. Maybe when you look around some of the coaches that's coming in to the new league, there's not a lot of Canadians there, but we will talk about why that is the case.
Yeah.
Because Jasmine's actually one of the few that has the coaching certificates in this country.
Yeah.
And that's a whole other thing.
I'm totally just joking.
No, I know, but
the NSL is starting at a certain place and trying to grow the game holistically on the women's side,
but this stuff like this hurts it because you've now lost a good coach, a good up and coming coach because of how she has allegedly behaved. Now, the one thing that did come out of it, and this was in another WhatsApp group that I was having this discussion with about today. Both the lawyers have said, "Oh, there's things in this that's fabrication," without actually saying what.
Yeah. Well,
so it's like we're left to wonder. So some of it's fabrication, so some of it isn't.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like it's pretty simple, standard kind of defensive practice, right?
Yeah.
Say it's not all true, but don't say what's true or what's untrue,
and don't admit to anything at this point because you're in deep.
Yeah.
and it's not going to end well for any of them. So
no, it'll be really interesting to see how it plays out, and like how they go about all of this, like how they what's next. And
I mean, last thing we'll mention on this just now, when you look outside of the coaching in Canada soccer, how much of this has been swept under the carpet? How many complaints don't we even know about? It mentions in the article Jason DeVos was furious that the names had been leaked, as he should be.
Yeah.
But did he do enough for other things? Did Charmaine Crooks do enough? Other people at Canada Soccer over the years, what did they know?
As much as the shadow's been cast on DeVos by some of the reporting, this also seemed to paint him in more of a balanced light.
Mm-hmm.
Talked about him being a person of change within the organization, of updating code of conduct, ethics kind of documents, recognizing they weren't at a standard that they need to be. And so there's still questions maybe about some of his behavior, but I feel like this article also gives a more balanced perspective of what he did. I'm not saying that necessarily negates the alleged things they did that were not great with the what was it? He was he had the complaints, right? It was a previous article talked about how he knew about these complaints and about the drones like a year before or whatever, and it was never dealt with. But again, it was wrong. But I think it was partly more like, hey, this is what we do now as Canada football, right? Like, since John Herdman's introduction to the women's team, it sounds like some point after he joined the women's team, this became standard practice for them. And it sounds like allegedly when he became the men's coach, it became a part of what they do. And it sounds like allegedly that doesn't happen now under Jesse Marsh.
Yes.
So, anyways.
I mean, I think moving forward, I mean, there's going to be things we never get answers to. There's going to be stuff for legal reasons that we'll never get answers to. There'll be stuff that will be redacted that you can read between the lines of.
Yeah.
But they need to get this dealt with and a line drawn under it. It's not good for Canadian soccer heading into an 18 months time a World Cup.
Yeah.
And a women's program that's now looking for a permanent head coach. And the players, any work culture where you're terrified to speak out is not a good work culture. And no matter who's behind it, or what the reasons are, it has to get addressed. And I think now things are in place that it will be. I don't know how this ends, but I do feel there's probably going to be more stuff come out before we get to the end of it.
Yeah, I think you're right. This is not the end of this. Oh, I think one of the big things is this investigation into John Herdman. I think that'll play a significant role. But I think
that also needs to get hurried along as well. Like, in all seriousness, from a TFC point of view, it might be funny if they have to lose their coach before the season starts. It genuinely, for that club, they need to get a line drawn under this. It's like,
hasn't One Soccer done like 2 or 3 like things already? Like, should Smirniotis take over?
Oh, I mean, they are very much in Bobby's corner. It's like, I don't think there's any question who they want to take over at TFC. I don't want him to take over at TFC because I want him to come here one day.
Well, yeah, because he'll help them.
Yeah.
He'll bring through young players.
I know he definitely will.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. It's just been another horrible week. That was a damning article. Was it skewed and one-sided? Yeah.
That is the one thing that you and I did talk about is I don't say this to any to mean that it negates the perspective shared, but there is a very small sample size here, right? Like,
yeah,
the one question I would have is, of these, I think, unless I'm misreading the article, it sounds like there's basically 7 individuals. Some are staffers, some are players, some are other people, coaches, I guess, or whatever. Some people within Canada Soccer, I think particularly on the women's side of things, who have shared with the Globe and Mail these concerns, frustrations, opinions, experiences, whatnot. That's both, to me, not an insignificant amount of people. However, it also and I'm not, like I said, I don't disbelieve what they're reporting.
Yeah, well, for one thing, it's like they have to make sure that they are 100% correct because they make some very serious allegations there. So I definitely don't doubt that for a second.
Oh no, I'm sure they have signed, what are those things called? Now I can't remember from watching law shows or whatever. There's a thing where they probably got these people to sign things that basically say what I'm saying to you is true or whatever, so that if it ever goes anywhere, that they can say, look, these people committed that these were true. Some of the things that are reported on are, it sounds like these are coming from, in some cases, yes, the well, that guy didn't even really talk to them, I don't think, the Drew guy, who I think Bev wanted to get rid of because he wouldn't spy. But it sounds like all these people are people who had bad experiences and it feels like they've left or whatnot. And we know that when people have a negative experience, that they're not prone to say good things. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I guess what I'm saying is it would be nice as this unfolds to hear maybe some of the other side of things, like because I mean there was reports coming out of other podcasts and other places basically saying going into the 2023 World Cup that there wasn't a good culture in the women's team. It would be good to hear, if possible, from some of those maybe squad players or maybe starters for the national team to say, hey, look, this was my experience. I didn't love the culture, but the winning at all costs was good for me or whatever, like just to balance it out a little bit more. I'm not saying they have to or need to, but I just feel like, and I'm not saying that would then again negate any wrongdoing or any, inappropriate behavior or, unethical behavior, which is obviously has taken place. But it feels all a little bit one-sided or one aspect of what's gone on.
Yeah, and I think that is probably one of the big complaints that both Priestman and Mander have, that they're not getting the other side of things, but
no, that's the thing, is Mander and Priestman are also not saying, well, here's my full perspective on things. But I'm not talking about just them. I'm talking about more of a broader sense of the room. Like it sounds like things were bad, right? But like, how bad were they? You know what I mean? Like, where is it just these few people who are like, look, it sucked for me, and like, us handful of people it sucked for, but like everyone else in the program was like, it's great, we're all awesome. Like the most of the squad and the kit manager and the whatever are all like, this is a great place to be and whatever. I just wonder how widespread this was, partly because there was this kind of certain quarters where saying things are not great, even, like I said, going into the 2023 World Cup.
Yeah. I think we'll draw a line under it for this episode. We've got one more part to come. We're turning our attention to the international stage next, and we'll be back with that after our final song from our album of the month.
Hi, I'm Sam Adekubi, and you're listening to the AFTN Soccer Show.
Welcome back to the AFTN Soccer Show on CITR Radio 101.9 FM. And kicking off this part, the sad part of the month, where we bring you the last song from our album of the month. It's been 1997 album, The Italian Flag, from English band Prolapse, and that was Dean's Hanger. Hope you have enjoyed them. You can find their stuff on all the usual places. Got a few albums out. Italian Flag is my favourite one of all of theirs. And we'll be taking a break from our album of the month because we kick off our festive 15 on next week's show, where I bring you my favourite 15 tracks of the year. Haven't put them all together yet. I've been going back and forward from that. So we'll see what makes it into the first ones in next week's show. Now, the lyrics in that song, Zach, the music was crap. The hair was crap. The clothes were crap. All about the 1980s.
Yeah, not wrong.
No, when you
I know a lot of people love that. A lot of people love that era, but
yeah, because like when we're watching movies and stuff, and it's like old movies or whatever, Caitlin's always like, "Oh, look at the clothes, look at the fashion." It's that thing. Like you look back at certain decades with maybe misty eyes, and it's not really realistic. The 80s was tough in the UK. I don't know what it's like over here. It was pretty grim. You had lots of strikes. There was mass unemployment. Lots of folk had to leave the country to go and work overseas. The music wasn't great. There was a lot of like manufactured pop stuff and disco stuff. I look back at the 70s all misty-eyed because I was a kid, and it's like, oh, it was great. There was great music and great TV shows. But you block out the crap bits. But yeah, the 80s, I think, was a pretty crap decade. I think it was maybe fashion-wise on a par with the 70s. You did have all the big shoulder pads and all the big hair, and I just remember at school everyone was walking around with their Frankie Says Relax t-shirts.
Yeah.
Anyway, did you enjoy the 80s? Let us know. 80s football, I still do enjoy watching that, different times. Whole different game, really, to the modern day football. 80s Canada national team football, though, was good because they did make their first World Cup.
Yep.
So for this final part, we're turning our attention to the international scene. Canada came away with a big 3-0 win, 4-0 on aggregate. Nations League quarterfinal victory over Suriname in Toronto on Tuesday night. We're going to bring out an extra podcast to talk about that, and we'll also talk about the MLS conference semi-finals and that as well. So subscribers, watch for that to drop later this week. It's $3 a month if you're not a subscriber, $30 for the year. And just to round off this part, I want to chat about a big talking point that was in the world of football this last international break. And that is the amount of games that international players are being asked to play, both internationally and club level. And the result of which saw a number of players pull out from their international squads for this past international window. It's been 3 international windows within 3 months of the new European season starting for the top leagues. And with all the domestic and continental cup competitions too on top of league play, it's been a lot of football. And Jesse Marr spoke to Christian Jack about it on One Soccer. So annoying for me because Christian basically asked everything I wanted to ask Jesse on the following day's call. So I didn't want to rehash that, but we did touch on it. So I asked Jesse Marsh and Stefan Estacchio just for their thoughts on the heavy international and footballing calendar right now. Here's what they had to say about that. Now, I know there's been a lot of talk going into this one, Jesse, about the international calendar, and I saw the piece that you did with Christian a couple of days ago, but I won't rehash all the stuff that he asked you about. But kind of for both of you, there's obviously no easy answer to balancing the club games, the international games. Is there an argument to be made for less international windows but longer ones? So you maybe play more games in that window and you get the groups of players together. And as a player, Stefan, would you welcome that?
Why don't you go first?
No, what I have to say is that I think at this point it's just too much for the players, and we can see that a lot of international players, especially from Europe, are already like backing out of the national team because of all these injuries. Big players and big teams are having a lot of injuries, and this is a big factor, that we as players, we have to, come together and decide like what's really important, because obviously coming to the national team takes off time with the family. With all the traveling, there's not much time to recover. And then when we go back to our clubs, we have a game, 48 to 72 hours after. In my opinion, I think it's too much. But at the same time, there's this commitment to play for our nation. And, we try to be always 100% available, but there's sometimes that is just impossible.
Yeah, from my perspective, you're right. I talked about this already, but now UEFA's added 2 more match days into their European competitions. The FIFA added the World Cup. The calendars for the international windows have stayed pretty consistent over the years, so there's not much to be said about that. But I just think you're getting money grabs from all over the place. They know that people love watching the best players and the best teams play as much as possible, and it is unfair to the players. Right. And one thing's for sure, if there's a money grab out there for these situations, and I surely hope that the players are seeing a high percentage of whatever money's being generated, because they're the ones that are sacrificing more than anybody. So all I can say from my perspective is I try, when these guys come in with us, and I have the benefit of having the European experience and knowing the demands on that end of things, I try to make sure that we get the balance right between the experience of when they're here and making sure that we demand a lot out of each other in terms of what we want training and the games to look like, but that the overall experience is mentally refreshing, actually, more than it is taxing, and make sure that they enjoy coming here, that they benefit from it in their careers, that they benefit from it in their overall feel of what the passion of being with the national team means. And I think in general, we've gotten that balance right. And I think that we have real positive energy when the players come into camp, and it's had an effect on our overall performances as well.
And I wear it for my lady, the Canadian flag, baby!
So Jesse Marsh, Stefan Estacchio there. So Stefan said, Zach, that he thinks at this point it's too much for the players. Players are getting injured, and it's a big factor. But we need to come together as players and decide what's important, because coming to the national team obviously takes off time with the family. With all the travelling, there's not much time to recover. We try to always be 100% available for our country, but there's times where it's impossible.
I know you and I have talked about this. I don't know if I want to say all the things that I said to you when we talked about this, because
I see it from the player's point of view, because like Jesse said, you're getting money grabs from all over the place, and it's unfair to the players. And if you're getting money grabs, the players should get a big chunk of the money as well. And it is all money grabs, because the Club World Cup's been factored in now. They've expanded the Champions League. And you want your international players to be playing for the top clubs. And if they're playing for the top clubs, they're going to be playing more games. Ultimately, that is their job, though. They're footballers. But I do get that flying all over the world for international games. And let's be honest, Suriname is a game that folk might think, we're going to win that. They don't need me for this. The England one was interesting, because a couple of the players had gone off for their clubs injured, some of them had gone the whole 90 minutes and didn't seemed fine for that and then pulled out. And it's always been the case, especially like with the UK nations, I can mostly speak about that. Top teams or players have pulled out of squads. And it's often for friendlies or shitty games against like San Marino, Faroes, things like that. And I think we could be in for a whole new wave of this happening.
I'll just say what I feel about this. Now, I will say, before I say what I want to say, some of the things I'm going to say, they might sound like they're contradictory to each other, but I think when you approach a subject, you can have views the way you'll understand what I talk about. Mm-hmm. But let me first off say, I would never want to devalue a person's own feelings and perspective on anything, or their workplace, what they do, the demands of their job, all that kind of stuff. So I don't do I believe what Stefan Asakio is saying, like that's how he feels? Yes, I feel that that's valid. I wouldn't say his perspective, his feelings on that are invalid or anything like that. But what I will say, and I also want to start by saying this: there's a massive problem in world football with the number of games that are being played. I mean, we talk about it all the time on this podcast about what the heck is MLS doing? Right? They are totally. You want to talk about money grab? I mean, the League's Cup thing is all about money. It's a long-term play. It's all this stuff, and they've devalued historic competitions that actually mean something to make more money off of bigger games. Now, in one sense, that's understandable. They're a football business, or football business is a part of what they do. It's understandable, but it's ruining, in my opinion, it ruins their what should be their primary or secondary competition. Something needs to be done. FIFA needs to do things that don't only serve itself, but serve the game as a whole. And that is probably maybe reduce games, or I think you and I were talking about this idea of, maybe you brought this up to me actually, idea of maybe less windows, but longer windows or something. Yeah. So something could be done when it comes to international game, but FIFA, as kind of the overviewers of everything, really do need to look at and not take a long time to do this. Not like, oh, we're going to do some studies and we're going to come back about this. They need to sit down with some medical professionals and say, like, what is a reasonable amount of number of games for a player to be playing in a season, and maybe have some standards around that. Now, that's how I feel about the match calendar. In terms of, and again, I don't want to, I would never tell Stefan Asakio or any player how to feel about their situation. However, having said that, football is a profession where I don't think it's great for someone, even though he's talking about his nation and now he's not talking about to his club fans. I think it's hard to really take someone who makes a significant amount of money at an amazing job, talking about being away from their family, because this is the job they signed up for, right? So on a club level, I think there probably still are too many games at club level alone, and that should be looked at. But like, also, footballers' schedules are totally different. Their job schedule is totally different than the normal person. They're usually done at like 1 or 2 in the afternoon and have like a half a day to spend with their family, right? Yes. Do they have work trips that take them around the country, around the continent, around the world? Yes, they do. Is that taxing? Yes, it is. But is it part of their job where they get really well paid to do it? Yeah. So I'm not saying don't complain, you get paid too much. I'm not saying that, but I am saying that when you have a job, you go into it knowing what the expectations are. You go into it knowing what's gonna happen. So it's hard sometimes to hear people complain. Remember, that's all in light of me saying there should be less games. When it comes to playing for your country, again, it's a similar thing. Like, to me, it's like, if you want to play for your country, play for your country. Again, that's within FIFA probably should reduce the number of games, or things should be better coordinated, or Nations League should be done away with, and countries should be only, there should be maybe standards or maximums around number of games or number of friendlies or whatever. Because this was you're right, this was a really weird international window where have not seen these kinds of absenteeism to the rate we did, the quality of player we did, with essentially the message being not so much, Johnny or Billy is hurt, but that, yeah, they're exhausted. And so they can't go out and perform.
Because, I mean, the mental fatigue as well, it does play into it. And like somebody like Fonzie that's pulled out, everything that's going on with him off the pitch, like contracts and everything, will start to take its toll on you mentally. But it's not a good look when your captain is the one that pulls out. The opposite of that, like Harry Kane was saying about the England players that pulled out, that's unacceptable. It should always be country over club. And it's like, remember who's paying your wages for the vast majority of the year.
I'd be happy for a different club to be paying his wages. But no, in one respect, though, I mean, Harry Kane is a person who highly values playing for his national team. So even though he probably is, to me, he more than Alphonso Davies in terms of Bayern Munich players should be resting, because he hasn't been, he scored a bunch of goals, obviously, but he hasn't been fully fit. He's had some niggly stuff. So he's a player who would probably benefited from. It's just awkward sitting to hear people complain about what they're asked to do for their work, and then also if you do well at your job, then you get this invitation to go play with the best players, or to do your job with the best co-workers in your country.
Yeah.
And whatever, it should be an honor in one sense. And remember, and I'm not saying, again, not speaking these words against Stefan Eustáquio or Alphonso Davies or anything. These are guys who are in the middle of confirming or negotiating like the most compensation from the CSA that any players have ever received ever. That some have claimed or argued, and we've discussed at length, how the money we're giving the players is actually hurting the federation in the long run, and probably could be better used if we gave them less money and used it at youth development levels or whatever, or for more camps or more
referee development.
Referee development. Yeah, let's put some money in there. So yeah, it's just kind of awkward. It just feels a little bit. I mean, we talk about it's maybe a different form of entitlement. I mean, you and I were talking about entitlement earlier.
Yeah,
it's a little bit like if it's too much for you, then don't do it.
Mm-hmm.
Like
next year's going to be insane with the Club World Cup.
It's so dumb
but then what I was thinking, I was going to ask Jesse about this, but I thought, it's too early. He'll say, well, we'll come to that when we come to it. If MLS changes its schedule, then you're going to have players going into the World Cup that's based in North America not playing from December up until the World Cup. So then you've got the complete opposite. And how does that work? That's not good for them being at their peak.
No,
So
they have to do that. They'll have a number of challenges. They'll have to do it in a way that doesn't totally mess things up.
But you know what's going to happen in the long run is they'll just get rid of the domestic cups. So the Elite Cup will go in England and Scotland. Maybe the FA Cup, or they'll tweak that beyond recognition. The US Open Cup and the Canadian Championship won't get competed on for the maybe MLS teams or whatever. That's what's going to go. It's not going to be the Leagues Cup. It's not going to be the Club World Cup. They're the ones that will stay, because that's what the folk around the world want to watch.
Yeah, ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous.
At least the talk of a World Cup every 2 years seems to have fallen by the wayside, at least for now as well.
Good.
But there is way too many games for the players. But if it does get tweaked, it's not going to probably be the ones that we're wanting. Jesse Marsh did say they've created the right environment mentally and physically in the Canada camps to make it an enjoyable experience.
That's nice.
But unless they're flying business class and stuff, it's which I would hope they all are, it's like not, it's not conducive. It's not sustainable. And you're going to start, there's already been talk about players taking legal action against FIFA for the World Cup thing. And
yeah,
it's just going to lead to a big thing. And you're just going to have more and more players pulling out of these squads, and especially for games against the lesser nations.
Yeah. And I mean, I thought this might have sunk him in terms of winning the Ballon d'Or, but Rodri came out against this. I think even before, it might even be before he got injured, right? Like, yeah.
It needs all these top players to come out and say that. Or you'll end up getting players then rested by their clubs for certain games, like, oh, Messi doesn't travel west for games and all this kind of stuff. But yeah, we'll see. Love your thoughts on it, listeners, as well. Let us know. I think we can all agree there's too many games, but what's your thoughts on the international calendar? My suggestion to Jesse about maybe having bigger international windows, but fewer of them.
Did this get confirmed? I read this somewhere that Jesse's basically got the CSA to institute a January camp for domestic players.
I've seen that. I don't know if it's confirmed, but I saw that as well. Camp Poutine, it was going to get called.
Yeah, because what was the American one?
Camp Cupcake.
Yeah, that's awkward.
Which is bizarre.
Yeah. Poutine sounds wonderful. But,
I mean, I do like cupcakes and poutine.
Yeah, not at the same time.
One after the other's better.
No, it's a multifaceted issue. With it feels like it's lacking strong leadership because capitalism, because greed, because money. I think for the betterment of the game, you need the people who can regulate things to do their job and to regulate them better.
Just wait till we have the traveling roadshow of leagues just playing their league fixtures around the world, like we were talking about earlier, because that's coming as well.
So brutal.
Yeah.
Brutal.
Have to say, I do think this is going to be a story that we might find ourselves talking about a lot next year and into 2026 ahead of the World Cup here in Canada, the US and Mexico. All these players obviously want to be a part of it. All of us want to be at the games as well, cheering them on, covering it as media, taking photographs. We just all want to be a part of what is going to be a fantastic experience in 2026. So that is it for the football chat on the show, or pretty much it for the football chat on the show. We're going to finish with this episode's wavelength. And I thought, let's have a World Cup theme going, triggered by something that happened this week, which we'll talk about after we hear this song. So this is a song from 1986. And if you are a new or newish listener to the show, Wavelength is a section we've run in the show since 2017. Every episode, we play a song all about football. Could be by a band, could be by a team, could be by a footballer. It's all got one thing in common. It is linked by football. And yeah, this episode, we're going back to 1986, a song that was brought out ahead of Mexico 86 World Cup. And it's by an English actor called Peter Dean, who will be more familiar to anyone that's seen the BBC soap opera EastEnders. He played Pete Beale in that show. This is a song that hopefully will not be a message many of us will be saying ahead of 2026. Peter Dean can't get a ticket for the World Cup.
Morning, Mum, you packed the bags, I'm off to see the old World Cup. Supporter for the QPR, with a teenage idol and a mega star, with a Latin lover on the silver screen, and a cancelled dustman in between. Indochina, Taj Mahal, seen the pyramids of Egypt, climbed Everest and all the rest, but I can't go and see what I love best. Mayday, I can't get a ticket for the World Cup. Hold up, we can't get driver in Kalamazoo, a cleaner and a sweeper and a superloop, and a batter and a bowler in the England team. I'm left and right of the political team. Indochina, Taj Mahal, seen the pyramids of Egypt, climbed Everest and all the rest, but I can't go and see what I love best. Mayday, I can't get a ticket for the World Cup. Hold up, you can't get a ticket for the World Cup. Mayday, I can't get a ticket for the World Cup. Hold up, we can't get a ticket for the World Cup. Can I get a ticket? Do you want to buy a ticket, Cup? Yeah, what's the damage, Stan? Shall I get a ticket? How much folding you holding? How many you got, mate? Will I get a ticket? Oh, I've got a dozen over here. Seven Beach TV, the Hurricane was no match for me. Play Cosmo, Dominoes, Dynamo, Dart, Mephisto and Jockey, a three-leg start. Indochina, Taj Mahal, seen the pyramids of Egypt, climbed Everest and all the rest, but I can't go and see what I love best. Mayday, I can't get a ticket for the World Cup. Come on, you boys, I'll pick it for you some World Cup. Mayday, I can't get a ticket for the boys all the way to Mexico and back again. Let's see you there, come on, Mayday, I can't get a ticket for the World Cup. Hold up, let's hear you all together. Mayday, I can't get a ticket for the World Cup. Hold up, we can't get a ticket for the World Cup. Mayday, I can't get a ticket for the World Cup. Hold up, we can't get a ticket for the World Cup. Mayday, I can't get a ticket for the World Cup.
Peter Dean there, can't get a ticket for the World Cup from 1986. Hopefully, listeners and ourselves will not be saying that when we're talking about the games coming up here in Vancouver and across North America in just 18, 19 months' time. It's exciting to think about that. But I partly played that song because we're talking about Canada preparations for 2026, but also because this week, Zach, don't know if you saw, World Cup hospitality deposits went on sale here in Vancouver and the other World Cup cities. And you could book a chance to get hospitality for just a small deposit of $500. Scary to think what the actual ticket prices for the games might be. Who knows what they're going to cost? Who knows what everything is going to cost? I know we've spoken a little bit about that before, but...
So I found those numbers, Michael, and this is USD pricing. This is from the bid book for the North American World Cup. It's table 7 ticket pricing summary. So how about I'll just use the group games as an example. So category one, which is the most expensive, normal seat, $323. Category 2, only $304. That's weird. Category 3, $174. So that's basically midfield. And then it's kind of next to midfield. And then category 3 is the corners. And then category 4 is the end zone. Goes down to $21. Now, the weird thing about those tickets, though, is it traditionally, those tickets have only been available, since South Africa onward, those tickets have only been available for domestics, right? So I don't know if they're going to continue that and how they're going to do that. Then there are 3 other categories. One is called business, which maybe this is what the skybox are. This is USD. The business for the group stage matches are $993. The skybox, which could be the hospitality, is also listed at $993 a person. And then there's a category called special, and I'm not sure what that means.
That's us.
It's $262. So maybe some people would be like, yeah, I'm willing to pay $1,000 American to secure my ticket. No, I'm going to be there for sure.
Well, yeah, you know, you've got Canada.
Yeah, maybe it's worth it. But again, those are in the bid book. Those numbers will likely change.
Yeah. So, any final thoughts from you before we wrap this one up? It's been another long one.
I want to give two shout outs. One's a kind of a sad one, and one's kind of one's a player related one. Just want to give a shout out to former Montreal Impact player, Cavalry FC player, and Vancouver Whitecaps player Karifa Yao for making it to the final of the USL Championship, or the USL Championship final or championship match.
Championship.
Yeah, this past weekend, his side fell, I think, like 3-0 to
Colorado Springs. I watched a bit of that. It was a very early kickoff.
Remind me the what team he's on again?
Rhode Island.
That's it, Rhode Island. Anyways, they lost 3-0, but kudos to him for being on a team that made it to the final. And I don't know, his contract situation or what's next for him or whatever. But just when I saw that, when I saw the game was happening, I looked it up, and when I saw that he was there, I was like, okay, good for him. Like continuing to, try like live the dream, develop as a player, grow, and find a place to play. And I kind of just hope all the best for him. And then the kind of the more sad one, I just want to give a shout out to someone who listens to our show. This guy named Ryan Hare. I saw him today, and I saw him under sad circumstances because tragically his mother-in-law, who I've known for over 20 years, and their family, and Cheryl's known them her whole life. His mother-in-law tragically passed away this last Sunday, like a week ago, from a sudden heart attack. And anyways, I ran into Ryan today because he was supporting his family and preparing for the memorial service and all that kind of stuff. And when I saw him, I haven't seen him in like a year and a half or something. Saw him a bunch of year one of VFC, and saw him. Him and his kids were at the Canada-Mexico game in Edmonton for World Cup qualifying. I think we were on the flight back together or something like that. But I haven't seen him like so long. I was like, dude, I haven't seen you in so long. And the first thing he said to me was like, I feel like I see you every week, man. He's like, I listen to the show every week.
Oh, that's nice.
I feel like I know everything that's going on in your life. So, anyway, shout out to Ryan, and thinking of his family as they mourn and they grieve in this season ahead.
Condolences from us to Ryan at this difficult time. That is it for the show. You can give us a follow on Twitter, AFTN Canada, Blue Sky, AFTN, Instagram, AFTN Soccer, and YouTube, AFTN Canada.
How's the Blue Sky going?
It's actually going good. I'm enjoying using it. It's really nice, and people are pleasant, and there's more interaction with less people.
Nice.
Very interesting. I guess you're like training just now for December 13th.
Is that open tryouts or something? Or
no, your VFC dance team.
Oh man. Well, I all I thought of when I heard about that was, I know they're trying to engage Michael McCall in new ways.
I mean, I've tried on my cheerleader outfit. Well, I say mine. I bought it, but it was more for Caitlin. But we won't go into all of that just now. It's a little bit tight. I maybe just need to do a little bit of work. We're looking at like treadmills and exercise bikes in the Black Friday sale, so maybe I'll get along.
Oh my goodness, Michael!
Maybe they'll engage me more that way. Everybody dance now. See you next week, everybody.
Going to your first match is an experience you never forget. The atmosphere of what's going on around the pitch looks beautiful, and you always look and go, wow, I'd love to play here one day. If you get the bug, it's going to stay with you for life.